Ready? I call this meeting of the Water Commission to order at 6 p.m. Roll call, I'd like to indicate that all commissioners are present. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Would y'all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I don't see any citizens out there, so I guess we don't have nobody signed up. We'll skip that one then. Okay, business items, number 5 here. First one is approvals. Minutes for the January 28th, 2020 Water Commission meeting. I know it's been 4 months since we last met and since the meeting, but does anybody have any corrections to the minutes? I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Okay.
Second.
I have a first and second to approve the January minutes as prepared. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next, we go on to discussion, reports, and updates. First one is Water Manager's monthly activity report. I'll turn it over to our Water Manager, Jacob Parsons, to review the monthly activities since our January meeting, right? So.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So I'm going to go through each month and kind of go through what we've been doing and what's happened in those months and conclude. So in January, we were using Trinity Water. The Whispering Oaks project was still ongoing. We started a AMR project research. We were doing research to find out, upon request from council and citizens, what that looks like and what we need to do there, along with some other technology that's been that's changed. And so we're going to talk about that more later. We also were looking into a work order retention system. Our current work order system that we have had was unable to retain documentation for the required amount by the city, by the law. And so we were looking into that in January. And then we were cleaning well sites. We were doing a lot of upgrading. We had a lot of pipes that had a lot of dust, debris, dirt, just stuff on them, or tanks and stuff like that. So we did a lot of cleaning for the tanks, and that actually sent through a few months. So in February, we were still using Trinity Water, and we started working on the master plan phase 1 and 2. To retract a little bit, we've actually started the master plan phase 1 last budget year, and it's progressed into this budget year. So, but with phase 1, we were looking into phase 2. So that's what that means. We had a water tap, which goes for a customer. It's a customer tap, and we were putting in the water line, and it busted. And some of you might have heard of this. It was off of Fair Oaks, and it actually gave us a split in the line. So we had a big water leak that we had to shut down the water system for a bit, and we had to issue a boil water notice. We had it repaired that day. The boil water was lifted as soon as we got our results back as being negative. So that went fairly well. In March, we started using Edwards water, so I wanted to give a 2-month gap for our summer of what we would need and have. I noticed last year that we stopped about 2 months early, and I didn't know how much water versus Trinity was really used, and I wanted to give some buffer so we could really use that in the summer months. We completed the installation of a CL10 at our well site 2252. A CL10 is a monitoring system that continues day and night 24/7 to monitor the chlorine residual that is in those lines. And what that does is that makes sure that we aren't sending any water that's not chlorinated out to our system. So that was a really awesome thing that we were able to finish up. We also implemented a new schedule and protocols and procedure for the COVID-19. We had a bunch of concerns, things that we didn't know about. There's still a lot of concerns and things we don't know about, but we were able to put some procedures and processes in place in order to keep our staff safe. We have a small staff, and we wanted to make sure that if something were to encroach, that we were to mitigate that as much as possible. And then if that escalated, if the crisis escalated, we were able to switch gears and change with it and make more stringent calls in order to keep people safe. In April, we continue to use Edwards, and we're going to continue to use Edwards water until throughout the summer. We also installed some new windsocks. At each of our facilities, we use chlorine gas, and the windsock is very important to find out which way the wind's blowing, just in case there might happen to be a leak, so you would know which way to run away from. And also in April, we selected Cartograph as our new workflow management system. So we went through a lengthy process trying to find out what system would work best for us, for the city of Garden Ridge, for Public Works and Water, and the ladies up front to figure out what would the best solution be. And we got a really good system, and we're actually implementing that now. We're doing a lot of, putting a lot of time into making sure it's right and done right. So this will last us for the next 10, 15 years, I'm hoping. With that, the Whispering Oaks project is still ongoing. There's a few things that need to be accomplished. We as a body will need, or you as a body will need to vote on it's a fire flow system. The words escape me, I apologize. Service agreement, there it is, fire flow service agreement. And what that does is it allows us and a customer outside of our CCN to get fire service from us in case of an emergency, but we have to have an agreement. We have not been able to get all the legal kinks worked out, so we're still working on that. That should be coming to you soon. That being said, there's a few other things that still need to be accomplished. The final walkthrough for the project. There's some vegetation that still needs to be grown over there. Some as-builts need to be submitted to us. And so there's a few things like that that still need to be finished before that project is complete. And I want to let you know, because that's been an ongoing project for quite some time. So that's where we are with that. And with that, that's all I have for the reports.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Do you have any questions for Water Manager? Start on my right.
I think it's just a typo, just to confirm on the March 31 report. Bottom, talking about Edwards and Trinity well usage. Is the month and year swapped on the Edwards? You have a month value of 74.1 acre feet and 58 acre feet for the year. That just doesn't seem right.
So you're talking about the first page?
Well,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's first page of the March 31.
That one? The one's on the screen?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that is a typo.
Yeah, I mean,
The year is lower than the month.
I will be sure to get that corrected and present that to you.
I mean, just fix it for the minutes. I'm not too, it's,
Well, the April's probably correct.
yeah, it looked like it was fixed after that. But second question, on the unaccountable unsold numbers, have we ever come up with a criteria yet for that percentage when it's not green anymore? We keep showing these percentages, and then every one of them is always green. So I'm wondering
Yes.
at what level is it not green anymore?
So your green should, a standard rate for percentage-wise varies depending on winter and summer. So the more water you have and you have the same water loss, the percentage is going to be different. So the range is typically 8 to 15% is what most cities see. And so we will change that range once it gets over 15%. It'll go to a yellow.
Then at what point is it red? I mean, when 15% for a small outfit like us is a fairly significant amount.
15% is, I understand. At that point, from 15 to 25, you would be in from yellow, and then it would be red. That would be more critical.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions? On my left?
How do I get this? Oh, is that thing working? I don't want to get too close to this KISS mic. So I had some questions on the unaccountable unsold. Again, to me, is a little confusing. There's no way to standardize it. I mean, in February, we used 16,000, total sold 14. We still had unsold, unused 1,800 unaccountable. 186,000? 11.1%. That still seems a little high, and I'm with you all on the 11% seems to be, to me, is anything above 10% would be cause to look at why is it unaccountable?
It's unaccountable because we have water that's sold and we have water that we produced, and we measure those against each other. So whatever we made and then what we sold, whatever's left over is our unaccounted loss. Well, that's not true. That's loss. And what we know that we lost because we used it to flush fire hydrants or do other things, or if we had a water break, we knew we used that water. So that's not unaccounted. That's accounted for loss. And then you go into unaccounted. We don't know where it comes from. And that happens in every water entity all over the world. And it's leaks, small leaks, little things. There are things that we can do to help improve that. And that's one thing we will be talking about tonight is there are some new technologies out there that would help with that. There's also some things that we did. We actually thought that was really high ourselves. So we went through all of our system and we looked at all of our lines to see if we can find any puddling or anything that was going on there. Not only that, but we looked at our cross-country lines. And those are the lines that go from one line to another line, but goes through a field or something that, isn't normally traveled like on the side of a road. And we made sure that we looked at that for both February and March. To make sure that we didn't see anything that was blatantly out there and running. So that's something that every time we do get in to those higher percentages, even though we don't necessarily know, we always check.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Hey, sir, so the company that you say you selected, what was that company again? For, I think you said administration. What was that company that we selected for the next?
Cartograph?
Cartograph?
Cartograph.
Cartograph.
Yeah.
What are they doing for us exactly?
It's workflow management system. So work orders or tasks that happen, we can track everything that's going on for employees, what they're doing, vehicles, where they are, the maintenance of them, the work that's being done on our playgrounds, our water facilities, our pipes. All that stuff will get tracked through the workflow system, and then we'll be able to see expenditures and things that we do and how much that costs with manpower, vehicle, vendors, all that stuff, and we'll be able to track all that.
So that's what we were talking about as far as depreciation. We're talking about really kind of honing down on the cost for our water, per gallon. 'Cause that's what we were talking about, last year this time. Trying to kind of zero that in, right?
Yeah, the cartograph will also do that. So you'll have water infrastructure and things, and you can grade your pipelines based on different things, and you can put preventative maintenance on there, scheduling maintenance, and you have a grade on a piece of equipment or a pipeline or whatever it is. And then after so long, it'll tell you need to check this, and you check it and you grade it, and you can say it either has, 10 more years of life, or it needs to be replaced or whatnot. And you can keep track of those things, and you can, over a period of time, you can really hone in and accurately know what's going on with your system and what needs to be replaced.
And the system is new to us, right?
Correct.
To the city of Garden Ridge.
Correct.
So that's kind of like our back office, if you will, kind of helping us to manage our back office. And then, so I was thinking about the forward facing, I was thinking about the billing. You know, we're still with the same company for our billing, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thanks, man.
Okay. Yeah, the one thing I would add is, one thing when we looked at the infrastructure last year with Commissioner Harsberger and myself, you know, we're trying to look at our PMs, our preventive maintenance and inspections. We had no history. So this work order system hopefully provides that history to tell you when equipment was worked on, what was done, things like that. So the system we had prior to this only kept history for a year. So that was important to keep history, a longer history, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to items from the February, March, and May city council meetings. In February, I took recommendations from the commission here to city council to credit 2 residents on leak adjustments. City council approved leak adjustments for 525 Farm to Market 3009 for $3,452, and at 9215 Laximas for $779. I also reported that we had one other leak adjustment that the commission made recommendations to the city administrator to take action. Also during the February city council meeting, I updated the Water Commission projects and reviewed the new project action plan. In March, while we didn't meet in February, because our February meeting was canceled due to early voting, I did update the council on the memo issued by city administrator, on which was intended to help commissioners get started on their prospective projects. The April city council meeting was canceled, and then May city council meeting, I updated the city council on the status of water commissioners' projects based on the comments that y'all sent in to me, or they sent to Cat, and Cat, you know, so I took a summary from there and presented to city council. Any questions on city council reports? Either side? Nope, okay. So, item 3, discussion on possible water rates for new landscaping. Back in September of last year, at the Water Commission meeting, Rick Cross came up during the citizens' comment period and requested that the Water Commission put it on the agenda to discuss relief from water rates, higher water rates for excessive water usage for new landscaping. One of Mr. Cross's neighbors had just sodded his yard and had a water bill for $4,300. So it's on the agenda today only for discussion. There's no decisions to be made. If there's any discussion, I would just pass it on to Commissioner Bullard and Mueller to add any comments to the ordinance 54 that they're working on. So I'll start on my left. Mr. Mueller, do you have any comments on this? Or?
The only question I had was on this, do we expect people to request this in advance, or is this something they do afterwards?
That's
Right? In advance
I would
seems,
think, yeah, well, that's up to y'all, but that's what you're suggesting then, I guess.
my suggestion would be in advance, but I don't know how executable that will be after looking at some of these leak adjustments that we're going to be getting to here in a minute.
Nothing for me.
Mr. Carmichael?
Yeah, I would second the thought that we need advance warning, if you will, or permission. I realize that new landscaping can take a fair amount of water, and I don't know if there's a timing issue also if you install your new vegetation in the spring when we have more rains and not in August. Something along those lines, and I would still, I don't know if this would be a place to do it, encourage xeriscaping of some sort and
Good point.
water tolerant plants. That's about it.
Exactly. Those are good points. For sure.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I'm just a little confused on this. We're going to come up with a different rate structure?
Well, all I'm saying is, you had a citizen that came up with this to put on the agenda. It's up to us to discuss and decide if we want to do it. We may not want to do it. So it's up to y'all if you want to pose this. City council will have to approve it. But, you know, is this something that y'all want to entertain? Is what I'm looking for. You know.
So I mean, I think it has to go in with the projects discussions, because it has a demand component, it has a rate component, it touches a lot of things, and it's gonna be really hard to come up with a criteria that is uniform and fair to everybody. I like the idea of having some recognition of the fact that, I mean, that is necessary, right? We do want people to keep their property in good shape. So there is some validity to the idea of having a little bit of a rate relief, but I do like the idea of having it where it favors those who are putting in plants that are more water tolerant and fits the city's conservation plan. So I mean, it just takes, I think this is going to take a lot of thought, not something that we can do really simple, and I don't even know that it's 100% necessary. We just wanted it on the agenda to honor the fact that, you know, the citizen brought it up and we wanted to be able to talk about it. So there's pros and cons on both sides of that issue. And I think if there was any kind of rate relief, it wouldn't be like a leak adjustment where you just go back to tier one. You know, it might be a percentage or something along those lines that recognizes the cost. I like the advanced part of it just because obviously somebody needs to do it in August. There should be a little bit of thought about what stages we might or might not be in. So I don't know that it's just a blanket, yeah, you can do it anytime you want. But I'd hate to have somebody, like, you know, with the hog situation and whatnot, where you have a significant event that causes you to put in a lot of unplanned maintenance. I mean, something like that deserves a little bit of thought. I just don't know that I'm certainly not prepared for a recommendation at the moment. It's just something to talk about and think about.
Well, like I said, I didn't really have an agenda for a recommendation at this point. It was just more for discussion. It was on there. And then we could decide what we want to do in the future. We want to bring it back up again for more detail, use it as an assignment for add another water project, a water commission project, or something like that.
Yeah.
One thing is, here my thoughts are, you know, if you talk to a master gardener, my wife, you know, you landscape during the winter months, early spring, so you have less water to use. Now, yes, we have builders that are building new houses and are all year round, and they're sodding their ground, but that's part of their business. And they spend the money to keep the house green, so when the owner comes in, it's green. You know, so, but if somebody's just re-landscape, you know, making changes, they'll have a more timely planning and do it, is my thought. They'll do it in the months that makes it reasonable, not during the summer, in July or August.
Yeah, and I don't think the city would be, I don't think our citizens would be in the mood to use this as a way to increase the profit margin of the developer, right? It should be
Right.
something that's for
Yeah.
citizens that are dealing with their yards, not necessarily new home construction, if it is done at all.
Right.
So anyway, my thoughts.
Well, if there's more discussion, somebody wants to put it on the agenda for later on, have more things, we can do that. Otherwise, we'll maybe lead up to ordinance 54 revision and see if there's any thoughts there. Otherwise, we, you know, at least talked about it. Okay? Next item, I had Kat put on the list to update on e-billing and auto drafts. You know, e-billing started at the beginning of the year, and as of earlier this month, we had 275 clients, or 16% signed up for e-bill, which is a pretty good start. Now, this only saves us right now about $50 a month in office supplies, envelopes, postage, things like that. We've used volunteers to stuff the envelopes, so it takes time. While we're doing the virus, we actually had the librarian come and help the city with staff. So everything that you get in the water that's mailed in, the grapevine, city calendar, flyers are also available via a link in your email. It's real convenient. Up here on the screen, you'll see the May 2020 Grapevine, where there was an article on e-billing, how to set up electronic billing. So I had Kat bring this up here so we can at least share how to do that. But this is the way to go. We need to go paperless. It's really going to save time in the long run. And also the same thing with auto draft. That's right below it. Sign up for ACH draft. Right now, we have 672 clients signed up for auto draft, or 40% of our residents. I actually been using auto draft since I moved to Garden Ridge back 11 years ago. It's just a convenient thing. I don't have to worry about paying the bill. I see it. I add the amount to my checkbook. I know it's coming out. It actually comes out on the day, on the 15th. You don't have to worry about planning, to be sure the check is there in time. So I highly recommend that. Actually, since then, I changed banks, so I started my power, CPS and gas, Central Power, CenterPoint, to do auto draft, just to make it, that's one thing my wife has to worry about if something happens to me. So at least to continue with service. Okay, so I highly encourage both of those. Also in the Grapevine, on the bottom right, did you know, and I'm gonna have to admit, I did not know this, that you can sign up, for this account here through there, and this article gives you past bills, gives you a consumption over 2 years. Right now, you only see the last 12 months on your water bill, but you can see the last two years worth of your consumption. And actually, mine's really reduced the last year versus the year before. I looked at that. So again, all these documents are up here, and if you go online, if you look at the Grapevine online, all these links are available, or links that actually work. So I highly encourage that. I'm not going to put anybody on the spot to answer, who's using e-bill, who's using auto draft, but I highly encourage everybody to do so. And I'll report to council the same way when I do that next at the June meeting. So, any questions or comments on this? Kat, you want to add anything?
No, sir.
Good sales pitch. Thank you for putting these articles on the Grapevine. That was real helpful. So, thank you for that.
I think when we do the articles in the Grapevine, there should be some acknowledgement that the e-bills will not request you to provide any information via the electronic bill or click any links within the bill itself. Just make it clear that the city won't do that. Because it is incredibly easy to spoof emails, and as soon as people figure out that that's there, then someone's going to start doing that to people. So e-bills are great as long as folks don't get misled by one that's
So
not
security,
true.
you're referring to security issues, or, yeah.
I wasn't going to go
Yeah,
there,
but I meant what you're saying, yeah.
We just need to be careful that people don't, the e-bill is to tell you your bill is there and how much it is, not to collect anything.
That's
Right?
correct.
That's done separately, so people just need to be aware of that.
And that item here on, did you know, if you log into that, you can actually pay your bill through that system versus auto draft or versus, send a check in, whatever. But you have the ability to pay it online right there, like anything else you do. So, any other comments? So thanks again, Kat, for doing that.
I
Appreciate
have
it.
one question. Are we trying to advertise that more to get more people to sign up?
Yes, well, yes, that's what we're doing. We started this process. We really want to encourage everybody. We've had this on the Grapevine for several times now. So we really want to do that. The less paper we have to deal with, that saves us, funds, saves us have to work about, stuffing the envelopes as well. So yes, we're advertising. That's what we're trying to advertise. And especially with the situation with the virus, that we had nobody coming in here, we want to also encourage how to pay your bills a different way than having to come in here. A lot of people come in and pay bills face-to-face, bring a check up or bring a credit card up. So all those we're trying to, the more contact we can reduce, the better. This is a great opportunity. Everything that's happened during the last 2 months has really changed the way we're doing business. And we'd like to continue doing that, so.
Has it been out on the bulletin board when you drive out Back Cave Road? You see, we get a lot of good information. I love that board out there. As far as that's something that catches my eye, like Water Commission meeting tonight. It's like, oh, yeah, okay. Has that been on the board?
I'll ask.
I should have noticed then.
Okay. So, thank y'all for that. I'll move on to, next section is recommendations. So, water leak adjustments. I'd like to remind all by law that the Water Commission does not have the authority to grant any financial credits. We can only make recommendations to either the city administrator or we take the city council to take action. Again, recommendation. We'll be following the same process I used in January. Well, I will ask the water manager to tell us about the request, what was found, his recommendations. I'll give everybody an opportunity to ask questions then of the water manager, or among ourselves. And then, if the petitioner is available, if there's any questions that we need to ask the petitioner, we can bring them on. There's several that be able to contact by phone. Some we have an email by. I don't know if we have a resident in the audience, we may. Okay? So we got 6 to do today. We've been a little behind. So, the first request is for 8150 Garden Ridge North. So, Mr. Parsons?
Thank you. We found a leak, a sizable leak. It was a 98,000 gallon leak between 2 billing periods, December and January. We were curious to how the water leak was not noticed, and we got a reply that they think that it didn't, they know that it didn't surface, and they think it went down to possibly a cave or something like that. That's a little unlikely, but it has happened. And we do recommend a credit of $1,179.08 based upon the evidence that we have found. So with that, we found for the first month, it was 140 gallons for 663 hours. And then the second month was 186 gallons at 29 hours. And that's how we came up with our total.
I will come back. I have a correction on your number. That's a different number than I have. On your correction on the bottom? where you
Yes.
have credit of 1,179,
Yes.
it really should be less. The 93,000 gallons are not at 274, they're at $4.42. That's tier 1 rating 4 outside rate. So it should be 411.06.
Correct, but I used the lowest tier rating that we have, which was the $2.40.
Well, that's for inside city rates. For outside city rates, is $4.42.
So we have, okay. I was under the assumption that the disparage of water was the low tiered rate, regardless of whether it was inside or outside.
Now,
So
would
I
they
will,
be-
for now on, I will make sure that that
Well,
is,
yeah, we'll have to, we should really be using the tier rate that's appropriate for that,
okay.
yeah. Especially if we go to adding other different tier, tiers. Okay, so, there's a letter, the back of that packet that has the rates from, the resident. So, if y'all want to read that. We'll start, on my left and see if, Mr. Mueller, do you have any questions for Mr. Parsons?
I'm still confused on the amount that we're trying to credit or
Okay,
adjust.
well, the difference is that this resident is outside the city limits. So.
No, I understand all that. I don't understand what the final number is.
Okay,
That's all.
so we'll start there, and that was the difference that we had, that caught Mr. Parsons on. So the water bill for 102,000 gallons was $1,492.83. Okay, so that part's correct. The leak of 93,000 gallons should be charged at the outside city Tier 1 rate, which is $4.42 per 1,000 gallons. So that should be $411.06. Okay. And then the consumption of 9,000 gallons, 58.93 is correct. And the difference is $1,022.84. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that when you emailed it back.
No, that's okay. Marissa, that's, that doc, if you go to the yellow where it says 254.82 and then correct it and put the correct for the 274 up top,
Up in the equation, yeah.
yeah, you can just plug it in the equation and it will do the math.
$4.42.
So the,
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Okay, any discussion from anybody?
So I just have a question. It's kind of a technicality type deal, but I know, and we kind of spoke about this. What is the customer actually asking us to do? So on some of them, I see it's filled out, but on here, I don't see it's filled out on the leak adjustment. You know, so I don't know if that was a discussion that happened between yourself or your staff and the customer. But when it comes like to us, you know, what do you want? You know what I'm saying? Like if the customer is standing in front of us, what are you actually asking us for?
yeah, so in the water leak adjustment request, the customer filled out that they just wanted an adjustment.
Okay. And adjustment.
Some customers give a more lengthy explanations to things than others.
And I'm still not finding that in the, maybe I'm just looking over it.
It's on page 22.
If
Page
you,
22.
if you look at the screen, at the bottom it says, what are you specifically requesting
Okay.
from the water
And
department?
adjustment, Okay, yeah, I was looking over.
I'm glad I can help.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Because I think that's pertinent, you know, as things go on. It's like, hey, what do you want from us? You know, hey, I just want a third back. You know, okay, well, let's consider a third, an adjustment. I want everything. You know what I'm saying? So. Yeah.
I guess my only question is, and I think you answered it, but I'm just clarifying. You are saying that you had good evidence for all of that. So we had the data to support that amount of leak.
Correct. You can look at the laptop readings that we have, and it goes through, and you can see that it's, 48 gallons an hour, 50 gallons an hour, and increases 97, 135, 142, and the leak continues to get worse over a period of time, 169. So there is the sufficient as evidence to show that there was a significant leak.
I don't have any other questions.
The only question I'd like to just jump in on that, so it looks like the lowest when it is leaking is going down to is that gallons per, what is that, 2.8, the gallons per minute at that point?
So you're talking about from the left to the right, the third column?
The third column.
Yeah, the third column is a maximum usage, so it's the max flow rate, but that's not necessarily accurate. If you turn something on real fast and then turn it down, it'll tell you in that hour you went up to 60 gallons a minute, yeah. So it's not something that we base anything by. There's occasions, we leave it on there because occasionally you can see some consistencies, but it's not always accurate, so we don't go by just that. that could be a helpful tool, but it isn't always.
It helps out a lot, but so the number on is the actual, how many gallons were used within that per hour period, or whatever that time duration is. And
Correct.
that's pretty consistently, the lowest it gets is it's pretty consistently 165. That's more telling, and then I've been concentrating more on that third column instead of the last column, and this helps me now looking at that and seeing that consistent reading. So thank you, that answers
You're
my
welcome.
question.
And I understand these laptop readings are confusing, and they do take time to go through. So I appreciate you guys and your patience.
Any other questions or comments?
Okay, we had a $794.21 credit recommended, and now we have a 1,022.
Yes, so my recommendation on that, I apologize. Were you talking to me?
Yeah, yeah. And the reason for that is because he used the inside city limit rates. So he had the actual bill for $1,084 when the resident actually got a bill for $1,400.
Oh, okay.
See?
Yeah, and the resident couldn't notice, I mean, that's a fair amount of water that's running
Yeah,
constantly.
I asked the resident to take some pictures and to show this one here.
Yeah, I saw the pictures and
Yeah,
quite
and that's
frankly,
where the
had
leak
difficulty
was.
Seeing much.
Yeah, that's where the leak was, and he just said it just did not surface, and he thinks it went underground. There's no way for me to determine whether it did or didn't.
I don't think it went to a cave, it could have gone to a fissure, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty close to the house. If there's a cave
It
there,
is.
then.
Okay, thank you.
All that brush has been removed now, right?
I'm sorry?
There was brush there or something. He had some prior to the leak. Or
Yeah, I
prior
believe
to
it-
repairing it.
I believe there was something
There
there,
was
yeah.
bushes or something else there, so now it's open, so. Yeah, so.
Had to ask, sir, and your recommendation is based upon the customer's good faith effort to fix the leak, to catch the leak, and so forth. That's what you recommend, yes, to the customer to give it back?
Yes, based on what we've done in the past with other customers and based on the evidence that I see and what our department has found, yes, this would be something that was well within the criteria of an adjustment.
I like the way, I agree with you, seeing that the plumbing contractor came out the day, this all works out to the day that leak stopped on the water meter report, so it looks valid to me.
Okay, I'm ready to entertain a motion then, if no other discussions.
All right, so I'll make a motion that we recommend to city council approval of a leak adjustment for the customer at 8150 Ridge North Loop of an amount $1,022.84.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend to city council a credit of $1,022.84. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Now, this one's not gonna be as easy. If you thought that one was easy. Okay, this one is 9497 Chinchola Trail. I don't know if I pronounced that right or not. So, Mr. Parsons?
Yes, thank you. We found a leak for 9497 Chichola Trail between January and February over 2 billing periods. And we found that the consumption was 272 hours at 66 gallons. So we do not have data for December. The customer was asked to be heard by the Water Commission. So basically what happened was is the credit that we offered was only based upon the information that we had, in which we could only credit the customer $17.90.
And this water leak was in their irrigation system. And been repaired, so. Okay, so to summarize, the leak adjustment was actually requested for period December 20th through January 21st. The crest was not submitted until February 27th, so the laptop readings were only collected from January 23rd through February 27th. And the data that Mr. Parsons just shared with us, he had a leak of 66 gallons per hour for 272 hours. Until February 3rd, that's when the leak was repaired. So for that billing period, he's going to recommend $17.90. There's no data for the billing period of December 20th through the 21st. I'd like to remind the commissioners that the water manager can only make recommendations based on evidence. You know, that's the facts, data, laptop readings. On the other hand, the Water Commission has some discretion to interpret the information provided and make recommendations accordingly. So I asked you to look at the billing period for December 20th to 21st of January. They were billed for 59,000 gallons at that time. And, look at the records, behind the bill on our records here shows usage for the last 2 years. So, right there, it's on the screen too. So yes, they have an irrigation leak. No, yes, again, we don't have no data that the water manager can actually say, yes, there was a water leak in December through January period. So if you feel it's warranted, give us, we can proceed. If you have any questions I'll wait here. I'll get a question for the water manager. If not, we can bring in the homeowner by phone. We gave the homeowners, the residents, option to call, that we could call them. So I have, and there's this one said they'll be available by phone, and we tested it and it works. So if you like, we can do that too. First question's for the water manager, so I'll do that first.
Well, I mean, it's so I'm going to ask the question just so I'm curious, but I don't want to imply anything by the question because the request in accordance with the ordinance is still timely, even though it was on the end of the period. But did they give you any indication as to a reason for the delayed request?
I do not.
It's not really delayed in the sense it meets the ordinance requirements, but it was a while after the bill perhaps. So did they make any statements like we weren't aware we could do it, or any reason for on their end that they told you for why there would be a somewhat delayed request?
I do not recall.
Okay, the request was actually made on February the 6th. So that was within that time made for that water bill. The laptop readings were not taken until February 27th though, correct? And there were some problems in communication there to get set up with technicians to get the laptop readings. So there's a delay of what, 3 weeks roughly? By the department,
10, 11 days.
And then I guess my other question is just to confirm your statement that the 66,000 gallons, was that per hour? Must be per
hour.
Yeah, but we have confirmed from the city's point of view that there was a leak. I mean, there's no question that there's a leak.
Correct.
So it's just a data issue.
Correct.
Okay. Well, the past consumption looks pretty consistent. So if we're not alleging any, if we're agreeing that there was a leak and it fits the criteria, the issue is only data, then we have consumption data that we could use if commissioners are so inclined. And, I mean, as I look at it, using a similar period from last year, the highest number on there is 11,000 gallons, so I would be inclined to base it on a 11,000 gallon figure as a baseline.
I will point out that whether it's 5,000 gallons or 15,000 gallons or 11,000, there's no difference. So you can say 15,000, that still covers that base rate, but 5,000 to 15, they're paying that same tier rate anyway. So it doesn't matter what that
I
number
mean,
is.
and I meant as far as
Yeah.
determining how big the leak was, so they were charged for 59. If we used 11, that means we would adjust it based on 48,000 for the leak. So,
Okay? Commissioner Haldeman, do you have any questions? Commissioner Carmichael?
The only thing I'd point out is again, the request is for an adjustment on our water bill. I guess there are no instructions on filling out the form or what information should be provided. Otherwise, I agree with your analysis.
Mr. Builder?
Yes, sir. So historically, this is what we did. I remember we met back, I believe it was in January. This is exactly what we did. We took the history and we made an adjustment. My question for you, sir, kind of in the case of the last one we recommended, we just spoke about, did this customer do their due diligence? I mean, were they about getting it done once they recognized that they were on top of it, when you're dealing with the customer and so forth? Or was it, okay, it's just water? You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, no, sometimes it takes time to get some of these leaks done, and this one was done in a decent amount of time to be repaired. It's just one of those things that when you have that time frame of when you get your bill, and that's when you find your leak, because you're like, what happened? And then it takes time to get it repaired, and so that was a decent amount of span to get it fixed. It could have been done faster, but I've seen a lot longer as well.
Sure. So the customer did their due diligence, if you would.
Yes.
To get it done.
Yes, I agree with that.
Well, yeah, because I mean, they got the bill on probably February 1st. They repaired it on the February 3rd.
Yeah.
On the February 6th, they submitted the request. Now, we didn't get the water laptop readings for 3 weeks later. That's why we don't have the record.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, and there was complex problems that we couldn't be able to get the laptop readings, I understand. So I think the customer did everything they could have done.
Yeah.
According to the data, the spreadsheets, the leak stops on February 3rd. It goes to 0. Yeah, going down. Right there. It goes to 0 on the screen. So I'm using that as the, and when was the month? They probably got the bill on January 31st. The Friday, got to repair it on Monday. So,
And I just want to be clear, so the leak in question is December to January billing
Yeah.
period, 2020,
Yeah.
or not 2019, 2020, right?
yeah, 2020, correct.
Okay, so when I look at the history here, I see December 2018, looking back 2 years, I'm seeing the usage, and correct me if I'm wrong. The usage is at 9,000?
11,000.
Okay. 11.
Yeah,
Okay, so 11,000. And then we're going up to 2019, it's at 59,000.
Right.
That's what we're questioning, okay. So, as Commissioner Harshberger mentioned, that 48,000 is what's in question, that we want to make an adjustment there. Given the fact that the customer did their due diligence, I would recommend that maybe we do the numbers. I don't know what the rest of the body's saying, but if we're gonna use that criteria, I believe the customer did their due diligence. Let's do the numbers.
Okay. Mr. Mueller?
So I have a question for Mr. Parsons. First of all, about the nature of this leak. It looks like a constant leak across the entire time of an irrigation system. Why would an irrigation system be leaking all the time instead of just when it's turned on?
So they have a master valve, but sometimes that master valve either doesn't work properly and is leaking out after it, or before that master valve. So that's why it would be constant in an irrigation system.
And this wouldn't be reasonable to notice at all, or anything like that?
It's a big, broad statement, and it just
Yeah.
depends. And
Okay.
there are times when you absolutely could probably see it, find it. There's times when you may not. We've had leaks on both sides of it where we haven't been able to see it surface. And we have definitely found it I've seen it where we have. But the problem is it was so far back as well, or so far removed because of the size of the land property. So it just depends.
Okay. It makes me nervous. For the other commissioners, just makes me nervous when we see these irrigation leaks, because, I don't know, there's got to be some responsibility on the homeowner to check their irrigation systems and know what's going on with that. Understand that not all the time you can see these things. And the other point I want to make is that as long as we treat them all the same, we need to treat everybody the same when we have missing data. To Commissioner Bullett's point there about let's treat it the same way we did in January. Thanks for bringing that up, because I couldn't remember exactly how it happened there. Thanks.
Can I,
When you call the person when you call them, or
I don't have any questions.
do we have any questions for them? If we don't have any questions, do we have to call them, I guess is what I'm saying? Okay.
no,
I think it's only fair because we gave you the option to not
Okay,
come.
okay.
Because you would call.
Okay.
So I feel like it's only fair.
What if
That's
we,
just my opinion.
what if we move a little further and see what we want to recommend? That way, when we call them, we can actually tell them what the plan is, see if they have anything to say. Is that way it'll reduce the conversation?
can I, Jacob, on, because if you have a sprinkler system and you have a backflow prevention, you've got to pay to have that inspected once a year,
Correct.
because I just did. You know, mine's turned off.
Correct.
So, okay, but, so it seems a little questionable on the irrigation systems, because you're supposed to, once a year, they come out and they make sure there are no leaks, and it turns off, and blah, blah, blah.
If the backflow is working. Mine scheduled for usually July or August, something like that, in the middle of the season, so. Yeah. So it depends on, every month there's some due, so they're not every beginning of the year, they're all due at the same time.
Well, there are a couple of, I agree with the comments about irrigation. I mean, this is December,
Yeah,
so, one might argue that the master irrigation valve should have been turned off. So there's concerns, but I don't know that with the ordinance, that's necessarily going to get us anywhere, having that kind of a discussion. I like the comment about consistency, and one of the ones in January, we look back at a couple years of data, not just the last year. I would be more comfortable. I agree with Commissioner Miller's comment that we either need to educate the customer when they come in on their initial contact for this, or maybe we need to put some more wording in the ordinance. But the burden of proof of what the leak was should be on the customer. They're the one requesting relief. It shouldn't be up to the city to go figure out how much the leak was. Now, to a certain extent, we have to because we have the data right now. But when they just say, I want an adjustment on my leak, and they haven't really put the time in to justify it, that's where I get a little bit concerned, because we're just looking at 1 year. That's why I picked the high number of that wintertime use, not the low. But I would like, going forward, that we try to find some sort of way to move that burden a little bit. Like, if they want to say, I want it reduced to my average bill, well, they have the capability, as we just saw, to go back and find out 2 years of what their bill was. I don't know why they're not being asked to do that. But having said that, we have an ordinance that says you had a leak, we validated there's a leak, we have data here that supports that there's a leak, and we can come up with a reasonable way to estimate how much it was. So, I mean, I think some of the stuff is for our processes to get better in educating the customers, but for our purposes here, I don't have too much of a question on whether or not they're entitled to an adjustment. It's just how much.
Yeah. And you can see the 4 months prior to this month, they had 2,000, 2,000, 3,000, and 3,000 gallons. After the leak was repaired, 2,000, and at zero this last month. They didn't even use any water. They may be out of town or something. So, yeah. Going back to your point about using, whether you use 11,000, and again, whether you use 11,000 as the average, or whether you use 15,000, or they use 5,000, the number you calculate is the same. So, you know, I just propose that we use 15,000, that way it's, just because, but the number comes out the same with the calculation that she would have put up there. So, I ran it multiple ways, and, because that range is gonna be the same price anyway, so. So I did run those numbers. So that bill was $402.52. If we use, the customer consumption of 15,000, that gave the leak at 44,000. So that's charged at $120.56. The 15,000 gallons is $52.40. That calculates with a credit of $229.56. So add the $17.90, and the total credit would be $247.46. If that's what y'all, based on what your comments, I had done those calculations beforehand.
What number are you using, sir, for that calculation?
Huh?
What number are you using? What rate? I'm sorry.
So, I use 15,000 as the actual consumption instead of the 11, just because it doesn't matter if you use 15, 11, or 5, the number comes out the same. So I use 15 so 59,000 gallons billed is $402.52. 44,000 gallons leak is $120.56. 15,000 gallons of consumption is $52.40. So 402.52 minus 120.56 minus 52.40 is 229.56. Marissa, could you probably put one of those spreadsheets up, just do we put those numbers in? Maybe just pick up.
Go to the Y drive.
Or who has the, oh, you do, okay.
You
So
go to
just
the,
pick, yeah, and those, so if you change the,
if you go to the Y drive, I have a water scale.
huh? Well, pick up the one that, this leak's associated with them.
But,
What,
so I have a spreadsheet that I used for
Okay.
such a thing. It's, if you go to the Y drive, water leak, water leak adjustments, and then cost of water scale. Wait.
not coming open.
It should pull up.
Oh, it told you.
That's fine, you can read only. So put in the calculation of 44, or sorry, the total was 59,
59,000, yeah.
and then the leak was 44,000. No, I'm
No,
sorry, just
the-
times 1,000, yeah,
Yeah.
59, 44. And then you're gonna have to go to the scale to the left and find the 59,000 gallons is X amount of dollars. So scroll down. Oh, yeah. So 402.52. And then on the 15,000 gallons is $52.40. No, sorry. That one automatically goes, so undo that, escape. And then with the 15,000 on underneath. Correct. That'll be $52.40. I made it yellow so I don't change it.
Okay. That's better. So you can see the numbers now. And if you change that 15 to 11, and then went to 48, they still come out to 229, so. Is that what y'all wanna, so, let me, no, we're not subtracting the leak. The leak is 44,000. We're charging them for those 44,000 at,
That's what
we're
we
charging, the
approved.
15,000 would be the regular consumption, so they pay that's the usage, that the regular bill would be. The 44,000, they have to pay at that tier rate of $2.74. So he's still paying that part. So you take the $402 minus 120 minus the 52 to get the credit. So they're still paying $172 is still their bill. We're still charging them for the water that was lost. We're just not charging them at the higher rate. Okay. If that's the plan to, is that the proposal we're gonna motion? I can
Well,
call-
we want to hear from the homeowner, right?
Yeah, let's start the,
But that's the thinking right now, pending on what
yeah,
they say.
see if it's anything different. No, we're gonna add the 17 to that. I mean, okay. 9864. Is that gonna work? Should I put that by the phone?
That everyone did it.
Okay, should I put that there?
Needs to be in the speaker too.
Maybe we should have give my number, huh?
I told them to expect a call between 6:30 and 9.
Okay.
You've reached Elma Demery with Allied Associates Commercial Floors. Thank you for your call. Please leave your name, number, message, and you can also reach
That's,
I say we just call once, just to be.
that's the number that's in here, so I'm gonna be sure. Yeah, I doubt they're correct. Okay. I don't know what we got, but that was a florist or something, it was a business.
Yes, it's her business
Oh.
one, that's the one she wanted me to use.
Okay.
So,
I guess I should have left a message. Well, they may call back. We'll go right about it. Okay, so let's, ready for a motion then? Well, we got it. Wait.
I just want to say I really identify what you said, Commissioner Mueller. Sometimes we get on a slippery slope with the irrigation stuff. So thank you for bringing that to the floor. And that's something that we'll definitely consider with our revision, with our review of 54.
Yeah, he's waiting on him, but he doesn't have to.
I feel like everybody ought to give him a hand when he comes back in. Just give him a clap.
Shall we do it? Okay, so I'll ready to entertain a motion then.
Can I ask one quick question? So the
Sure.
22956, does that need a 1790 added to it, or is that?
Yes.
Okay, so I make a motion for a leak adjustment of $247.46 for 9497 Chinchana Trail.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Going on to number 3, 9010 Sumac Cove. Okay, so Mr. Parsons,
Thank you.
do I check?
Okay. Thank you. We found we were able to take a laptop read because we were requested last year, and this was during the July and August time period, but we didn't receive a leak adjustment request until March of 2020. That if we were able to do a water leak adjustment back then, it was about 7,000 gallons, and it would have resulted in a $56.21 adjustment. But since it came so late, it was past the due date of when it would need to be submitted. That being said, in the laptop reading which you have, it'll also show that the leak had not been repaired. So that would be another disqualifier for us to be able to grant that leak.
All right, what side? Mr. Mueller, any questions? Or do you want to clarify? I got some clarification first. Maybe I'll cover that first. So basically just summarize, first let me summarize what was just said. The request was submitted March 5th, and they're asking for funds for the period of July 22nd through August 22nd. Okay? Our ordinance says we have 6 months to turn the paperwork in. Okay? So that's past 6 months. Now, there's been emails going on back and forth that are in the packet from, I think, from October 11th, something like that. It goes the furthest back. So, right. They also went back that far. Okay. So I don't know, we don't know, I asked questions earlier about why it took so long to get the paperwork in. So I don't know, the miscommunication or what, but anyway. So now I'll turn over to questions now. Mr. Mueller, do you have any questions?
No questions for Mr. Parsons.
Okay.
But I think you brought up a good point about this email trail going back to an email to the mayor in October, right?
There's emails going back and forth, yeah. There's some in here. So just, the thing that's missing was the request was not completed until March the 5th. So. Mr. Bullock?
I guess the question that is kind of an obvious question, was the customer aware that, you know, they had 6 months to turn it in?
I can't answer that definitively. I believe they have been, but I do not have an email that states that. Of the many phone conversations that they've had with the front staff and us, I'd be very surprised that it hadn't come up. Not only that, but it is in the ordinance, and it's directly, you know, I mean, it's there in black and white.
They are available by phone, so we can call here in a minute.
Know what that answer would be?
Yeah, okay. Mr. Carmichael, any questions at this point? Still confused? Okay. I'll come back to you then. Mr. Haldeman, any questions at this point, or are you confused too?
I'm a little confused too.
I spent all weekend on this, so I got a head start on y'all, but that's about it.
I don't know if it's not a question, because I mean, I think everything's here, but the emails seem to indicate the customer is saying that the leak wasn't found and corrected until March. The ordinance does imply that part of the paperwork is the repair. So one can make an argument that if emails are going back and forth in October, then the process was in play already, and they should have, what they should have done is submitted the leak adjustment, and then they have that 6 months to get the paperwork in. So they kind of did it backwards. But August was also the time period we were going through the special meetings and trying to figure out what to do with the rates, and the ordinance, I don't think, was approved at that point. So there are some other extenuating circumstances. It would be interesting to hear the customer's point of view. But once again, it's not completely clear what they're requesting. You know, the emails don't seem to agree with the $56, 7,000 gallon week.
The leak adjustment revision to the ordinance was approved in August.
Is that the police report?
I guess they're breaking it down. I guess they requested $229 from us. And 3 cents, got to get that 3 cents. But yeah. Right? Broke it down. So, yeah. So I guess the question is with the 6 months, you know, what are we looking at here? 6 months, or we putting weight on the fact that it was in play October? That's the question.
Mr. Commissioner, if I may, they did, if you look at your screen, they did request a very specific request of $229.03 for that time. Also want to add that the problem was that the water leak was ongoing, and in fact is still ongoing. They have a second leak request. They've had many leaks that they're trying to deal with, and they are still pursuing that. So there is another leak adjustment that is still underway. I am unclear as if this beginning of this leak adjustment continues all the way to the present day leak adjustment. I didn't want to bring it up because this is the one on the docket, but if they're linked, then it's something that needs to be considered.
So the way I'm looking at this, it looks like, so this past August is what they're shooting for a credit for. But the previous August, they used approximately the same amount of water. If I'm looking at this right on their bill.
You're correct. I agree with Mr. Haldeman in that period of May 2018 to just September 2018 is almost the same as the same 4 months in 2019. So, don't know what that means, but that's just data we're looking at.
I guess I have one question on this one because they talk about a freestanding ice maker as part of the leak. And I think we've had discussions on appliances, but I'm not sure if they're included in the leak detection ordinance adjustment.
We had discussions back in January about what to include and not include. I think we just had discussions and we made note, and we, again, referred back to revision of ordinance 54 for that. But we didn't make any recommendations or yes or no to either any of those.
I'm a little confused on how you wouldn't notice an ice maker leaking.
If y'all like, I can get the petitioner on the phone and you can ask questions directly to the petitioner.
We can do that, but I think Commissioner Haltman brought up a very good point. I mean, the uses are the same from year to year. I mean, when we're looking at history,
Yeah.
history doesn't necessarily lie to it.
Well, I think that's the reason the police report's in there. They're basically trying to say this leak is a direct result of that incident, and it's been ongoing because they haven't been able to find the exact part. So there's a whole lot more to this than, I mean, I think we're gonna have to hear what they say, but I agree with Mr. Parsons. I don't know how you separate out the 7,000 gallons from the other. I mean, there's way more than one event here.
Yeah.
Okay, so, ready for me to call him?
Yep.
Okay, we'll try this again. Yeah. Hello, this is Jesse Valdez with the Water Commission.
Hi, Jesse.
Hi, the commission is in the process of going over your request. I have you on microphone so that everybody can hear. There's several commissioners that have questions for you, so
Yes,
we'll see.
please, go right ahead.
We'll see if this process works, so. Go ahead.
Thank you. By the way, thank you for allowing us to do this by telephone. We are truly grateful.
Yes, we understand with the situation we are now, this is one option, and we tried it, so it seemed to work, so I hope it does work tonight. So be sure
Good.
you use your microphones, commissioners, so.
Man, this is Joe Haltman talking. I just have a quick question. We kind of were talking about the ice maker. Was that a part of the leak, or was that just something noticed at the time by the plumbing contractor?
Well, because after they repaired the leak, Newsom Sprinklers repaired our irrigation leak. Dwayne and Chris came down and checked our meter, and they found an ongoing small leak. So we had the ice maker repair company come and check it to see if it might be them. And it was interesting because when they turned it off completely, there was no movement in the meter, which makes us think that it's because it's a continual feed where the ice melts and goes, the old ice goes down the drain, and then they provide new ice. It provides new ice for us, and we're thinking that could be the very small leak that was ongoing and maybe still is. What do you think?
Hello.
Jacob?
I would think it would be small in comparison with the irrigation system. I can't say that 100% confidence, but you would.
Who wants to add something?
We need to make sure that she's talking about the leak in July and August and
Okay.
not the one current.
Good point. That's referred to the leak, the request is for August 22nd through July 22nd through August 22nd. was
So
the
that's a
request.
different
Yeah.
time frame. Okay, I apologize for bringing that up then.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
So, anybody, who's next? I'm gonna just leave it open. You wanna go? Okay.
I think mostly we just wanted to hear their side of the story. Because there's data issues and complex, there's a lot of information here, so for that August time period.
I'll say there is. To hopefully simplify it, we found the irrigation leak, and we called the water department, and Dwayne and Chris came down and verified, yes, it was definitely an irrigation leak. They helped us turn off the irrigation system, and then Newsom Sprinklers came and repaired the leak for us. But then, after they repaired it, Dwayne and Chris came back down and looked at the meter, and there was still this ongoing small leak, and it's been, you know, a real pain, if I may say that word, trying to figure out. We went through all kinds of gyrations, the ice maker, the soft water, the water softener, and you know, all kinds of things. But anyway, the bottom line is that we thought that we were not allowed to submit a leak adjustment request until this was all taken care of. And so it was our misunderstanding, and Jacob would kindly put us straight, corrected us, and said, go ahead and submit the leak adjustment. And so I guess what we're asking for, even though it's well beyond the 90 days, we're asking, I guess, for forgiveness for our misunderstanding. Maybe a better word is mercy. I don't know how else to say it.
Okay. Yes, because our ordinance is pretty clear about the timing on when you submit, you know, when you start the process, you get the laptop readings, and then when the final paperwork is done. So you could have submitted your paperwork real early, and then the repairs as you're trying to find the leak. So far, maybe Mr. Parsons, have you shared with the numbers you shared with her, the calculations you had here? If it goes back to,
So from July and August?
yeah,
So the water bill was 62,000 gallons, and we found we could substantially leak because of our data that we have found was a 7,000 gallon leak. And so her consumption was 55,000 gallons, and that would have resulted in a $56.21 credit. But that's based on the information that we could collect.
I don't know if you were able to hear them?
No, I'm sorry, we couldn't.
Okay. The data that laptop readings that, you know, found again, was for a leak of 7,000 gallons. And for that time period when you had a 62,000 gallon water bill, it only brings, be a credit to only $56.21. The main issue, so that's one thing, but the main issue was the 6 month. I think it's only 6.5 months after the request, after the billing period that the request was received. So I'll leave it to the commissioners for any more discussion or questions before we decide what to do. Any more direct questions for the petitioner? No? No?
I don't know if it's a question for the customer or for Mr. Parsons, but we have, the laptop data is 7,000 gallons leak. The customer's information they submitted is a different number. So I guess I'm asking the customer how they came up with their number.
With our numbers?
Yes, yes, you
So
have.
you're asking for leak adjustment for a gallon amount that is
Yes,
different than the laptop?
we went through and tried to average out what was used during the period between 2017 and 2019 on an average during the irrigation months. And we used approximately 35,000 gallons during those months in 2018 and 2017. So in 2019, when the August bill came out, it was 62,000 gallons, which is a huge, I mean, it was double, absolutely almost double the amount. And so that's how we came up with our calculations of at the amount of per gallon, and we came up with 167.89. That was for August, and then for September, 47,000 gallons, which again was 12,000 over what we normally use, and though the difference was 61.14. That's how we came up with the 229.03.
Okay, well, we have data that's provided to us by month for the last 2 years. So for May 23rd through June 22nd of 18, used 45,000 gallons. June 22nd of 2018 to July 23rd of 2018, used 51,000. July 23rd of 2018 to August 23rd of 2018, used 60,000. which is only,
Yes, that's correct. And that was an error in programming. And Royce, remember Rice Goddard?
yes?
Yeah, he came down and he helped us, and he said, you have a phantom, I guess they call it phantom, usage. In other words, it was doubling up what it should have been in August. And they said, I'm sorry, but we can't do anything about it. And I said, well, we used it, So, but that's the reason that bill was so high.
It happens to be the same time period as this year, as 2019.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, that's what says you're consistent with the water bill, 62,000 versus 60,000, so,
Right, and I can understand where you're coming from, because
Yeah.
we looked at the same thing and we said, wow, it's happened to be the same exact month.
Right.
But this time it was an irrigation leak. It wasn't a phantom programming.
okay. Okay, so I'll turn it back over to the commissioners, see what actions. At this point, I'm ready for a decision by the commissioners, so I think we have all the questions answered.
I think we do.
Okay?
So if you just hold on, we'll just process it here, like if you were here anyway, in front of us. So
Oh, fine, thank you.
you can listen on. So I turn over to the commissioners, see what do you want to?
History.
So, Commissioner, Chair Valdez, said one thing here. When I look at the ordinance 54, it says, request for leak adjustments that extend 6 months beyond the billing period in which the leak was detected will not be considered. So that's kind of a sticking point for me. I'm not sure that the Water Commission should go against what's written in the ordinance without some kind of further guidance on that one. That's a problem. I understand there's mitigating circumstances, but can we make that decision?
Okay. Any further discussion on that?
I mean, I'll get back to you.
Agree.
So, Mr. Miller, you ready to make a motion based on that comment?
Is there anyone that can clarify that? Is that a hard and fast rule based on the ordinance? Is there any wiggle room there whatsoever?
Well, I mean, it is a
lawyer.
rule based upon the ordinance. I don't think there's any question about that. The question is, what constitutes a request? That's where the question comes down. I mean, the ordinance was approved in August. This was a July-August leak. And there's email communications about it in October, which is within 90 days. So the question really is, given this was the first time we started doing leak adjustments for an extended period of time, is this enough to say, well, there was a request, it just wasn't done with the proper paperwork? That's a different issue than the request was not timely. So, I mean,
That's fair.
I can argue that one either way, but the leaks wasn't fixed and the history indicates consistent usage. And so the only data we have is 7,000 gallons, confirmed 7,000 gallons leak. So from what I see, the first question is, do we go back and say there's extenuating circumstances? We don't make the decision, council makes the decision, but there's extenuating circumstances, so we push it forward with a favorable recommendation. But then if we assume that we do that, then the question is how much? And I think the only evidence that we can rely on at this point is the 7,000 gallons. So I can't see any recommendation more than that, but we have to get past the first issue, which is that enough of a timely request based upon an email to the mayor? I guess I'd ask the staff about the interactions, what's the city's position on that?
So, city administrator could take a position on that? Cat's getting the mic for you.
Excuse me, sir. If I may jump in, it has nothing to do with the actual discussion, but the mechanics of this. When someone else is speaking, if you turn your mic off, the speaker that's sitting in front of you will be able to transmit to her phone, to your phone, to her phone.
So I should leave it on? Well, I have those speakers. I have.
Yeah.
Okay, so I should leave mine on?
Yeah, if you shut your mic off, that speaker activates,
Okay.
and then she'll be able to hear what they're saying.
Okay.
When I look at the first email that in the package you received, which is dated October 11th, the subject is water leak adjustment. Since there's a series, although the actual form was not submitted, but there's actual correspondence back and forth that references the terms leak adjustment, I think I would consider that.
Okay. So that supports what Commissioner Harsberger was just saying? Again, the data is only showing 7,000 gallons based on the data that the laptop readings were taken by the two technicians. So,
Can I get some clarification, please?
yes, sir.
So if this happens in the future and someone sends an email and doesn't send in a leak adjustment request in a timely manner, we'll also consider that?
We also need to be asking for them to do that.
Okay.
No, yeah, we tell them at that point, please submit your paperwork.
Go ahead.
I'd like to stress that someone comes forward in the future with a leak adjustment, we tell them, we make sure that we tell them, even if we have to put it in an email to them, as well as verbally, about submitting the forms. And if I'm not mistaken, these forms were, and the leak adjustment policy were rather new at the time. So that's my recommendation.
Okay. Thank you.
And from my role, I wouldn't see this as a precedent. This is going back, and as the customer said, this is mercy if the council decides to do it. You know, we're saying there's an extenuating circumstance, and we'll go on that. But I would not see this as setting a precedent moving forward. It just, we'll tighten up, make sure the customers know what paperwork is required.
Okay, any more discussion? Commissioner Buller, Carmichael, Haldeman? So, who will get the motion from? Commissioner Harsberger?
So before I started, the credit for that 7,000 gallons is the 5621, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, so then I make a recommendation, I make a motion that we recommend to council,
To city administrator.
oh yes, to the city well, let's pause that motion then for a second, talk about that. Dollar amount is the city administrator, but this is outside the scope of the ordinance. So,
But the city administrator gave you a clarification on what she thought about the 6 months. So,
okay, well, she can always say no, so.
right.
Very well then, I recommend that the city administrator give favorable consideration to a credit in the amount of $56.21 for the customer at 9010 Sumac Cove as presented to the Water Commission.
I second the motion.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so motion's carried that we're going to recommend to city administrator to credit your account $56.21 based on the data that was able to take from the laptop readings.
Well, thank you very
okay.
much. We appreciate any help. That's greatly appreciated.
Thank you for your time, being available by phone.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for allowing us to do that.
Okay, have a good day. Bye.
You
Or
too. Thank you. Bye.
Ooh. Moving on. At this rate. Number 4. Let me turn this off.
In 9622 Meadow Rue,
Yes.
we had a leak over 2-month billing period of 68,000 gallons that would result in a $409.38 leak adjustment. It was over the threshold for the water department, so we are recommending to the commission that this be granted.
minor leak. What was the cause of the leak? Do we? According to the repair, the leak was found in the slab on the hot side causing the problem. The leak was between the water heater closet and the main manifold to the laundry room under the shower, under the washer box. Yep. Questions for, well, actually, continue looking at the data, but everyone has questions for the water manager. And the leak rate was 92 gallons per hour through both billing periods, looks like, right?
This one seems pretty cut and dry. Do you want me to make a motion? Or is
Go ahead.
people discussing it?
Make a motion, if there's any discussion, and we'll go back to it.
Got it?
Just for information, the resident did not reply to any email communication, so unless, okay, so.
So I make a motion that we forward this to City Council in accordance with the water manager's recommendation of a credit of $409.38.
It'll be to the city administrator.
City administrator, that's what I meant to say. Exactly that.
Try to promote her. She wants to keep getting paid. She doesn't. Okay, so your motion again?
My motion is to forward a recommendation for a credit of $409.38 to the city administrator for action based on the recommendation from the water manager.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Excuse me, so the credit is $409.38? That's what we're crediting
Yeah,
this homeowner?
that's the,
Okay.
per Mr. Parsons' recommendation.
Okay. And so the
Let's have a
city,
second, then we can do the discussion. If I can get a second.
I'll second it.
Okay. Okay, now discussions.
okay. Okay.
No discussion. Okay. Anybody have questions, comments? Okay. So I got a motion and a second to recommend to city administrator to take action on a credit for $409.38 based on the water manager's findings. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
I have a question, sir.
Yes, sir.
We go back up to 94, 97 Cinchanoa Trail. I can't remember if we made a recommendation for the city council or for the city manager. I think we were in the city council. We did make it for the city administrator. Okay.
Yes. Make sure of that. Okay. 429 Wall Lane?
Yes. There was a water leak between January and February of 2,470 gallons that did not result in a possible credit. Also, we have no historical data supporting a leak for the past year. Customer requested to appeal to the Water Commission. So basically what happened here is the leaks over the two billing periods, the data that we had collected to the time of the repair, it did not meet that threshold. So regardless, they did have a leak and it would be credited if it was a higher amount of water usage. But since it was within that 15,000 gallons that they used, including the leak, it would be the same price whether they had a leak or not because of the low rate, or at the low tier rate.
Now, the request says for the billing period of all of 2019.
We do not have historical data for that.
This was submitted March the 20th, okay?
So the issue is the leak was small but ongoing? Is that what we're saying? Am I interpreting that correctly?
Correct. There was a small leak over a period of time. The data that we shows it over 2 billing periods. So that's why they did have a leak. It has been repaired, but it does not meet the threshold to actually, because they still have to pay for the water at the lowest tier. So whether we grant it or not, it would still be the same price of their bill.
But that's for the time period for those 2 months that you had data, right?
Correct.
Is there any evidence that there wasn't a leak before that?
I apologize, I'm a little confused.
So as we look at the data, are there enough periods of zeros in there to support that there ever was a time where there wasn't a leak?
Oh, you're talking about, but just for that period of time? You're talking about,
No, I mean. if the
previously,
whole
we have
period-
no data to tell us anything. This is the only data we have for this
So.
place.
January, shoot, what is the date on this one? I forget.
So we have January 1st through January 20th was the billing period for that first one. That's the data we have. And then January 21st through this February 1st is the data we have, or that's when the duration of that leak. But we don't have any prior data. You can look at the water that's been used, but even when we found the leak, you can see that it reduced. Leaks don't reduce.
So, Mr. Parsons, can you correct me if I'm wrong here? So the leak looks like it's about 1,200 to 1,400 gallons a month. Sorry, I didn't use my calculator to figure that out, but it seems pretty small, right?
Yeah, I mean, if this historical data,
Yeah, 2470, so 1,235 per month. Am I doing that math right?
Yeah,
Or
we're
1,235 per billing period, maybe?
yeah, we're looking at,
So even if it was the entire year, we're talking 15,000 gallons, and the customer asked for a $500 refund?
correct, something similar to that, yes. It'd be in that scale.
I mean, that's not $500 of water, that's not even close, right? Okay. Just seeing if I was missing something.
Mr. Parsons noted that the last two bills, ending period, February 20th and January 21st were 12,000 gallons both months. So that's under the 15,000 threshold. The previous months, yeah, they were a little higher, but so was the previous year. So, for those.
So
same
I
periods.
can't see any reason why we would approve a $500 refund like the customer's asking for, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's no data to, yeah, I agree, there's no data, but I'm not here.
Where is the, it says in the email, and I'm probably just not finding it in the pile of paper real quick, but it says they had the leak and it was repaired. When was the repair? I'm trying to find that receipt.
There's that, yeah,
It's on page 181.
it's on the screen now. And the previous page. Yeah. So I had two, that one and the one before that. There you go. Right there. So February
Okay,
7th,
so on the 7th,
they had one February 7th and one February 28th.
and the data has zeros for consumption on the 4th. So even if we accepted the argument that there was a continuing leak the whole time for a year, that doesn't match. If the repair was on the 7th, what would have made the consumption zero on the 4th? Unless, of course, the invoice date might be incorrect, but.
There's also zero consumption on the 3rd.
There's zero consumption throughout the data there.
Well, there's one on the 5th,
Yeah.
only one, but then there's some very low numbers.
Yeah.
But the zeros started again in February, early February.
Yeah, less than a gallon in January. For an hour, that's not.
So even under the standard, okay, we don't have laptop data, we might be able to look at records and see that there was prior leak. I don't think there's not enough there to support it. So I think I'm inclined to agree with the water manager on this one.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to deny the request for the $500 credit to the water bill for 2429 Wall Lane.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to deny this request.
So just to clarify,
Okay, discussion?
we don't
Huh?
really deny, we're just not recommending approval, right?
What's the correct process? We're denying this, we're recommending not to, help me with the words.
You can approve as recommended by the Water Commission, which is $0, or Water Manager.
What's that? To, let you word it correctly for me. Nancy?
I'm sorry.
Word the record, what should be our action be if we're denying this request, or what's the proper wording? I think this first,
I would say since the city administrator is the one that takes the action and y'all are just a recommending body, that you should recommend to the city administrator deny the request.
okay? Thank you. I like that.
Okay, my motion is to recommend to the city administrator that she deny this request for a $500 credit on the bill for 2429 Wall Lane.
Okay,
Second that.
okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend to city council, city administrator to deny this request. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Now we have our last water leak adjustment, 21-926 Castano Clove. Mr. Parsons?
Yes, we had a 63,000 gallon leak over a 2 billing period, December and January, which qualifies for a $366.32 credit. As you can see, there was the 13,000 gallons the first month, with which we found 2,000 gallons being a leak, which that doesn't meet the threshold. But from January 21st to February 20th, that would meet that threshold and be that $366.32. And as you see in your packet, the claim of feral hogs, so it was brought up earlier about feral hogs and if that would cause a leak, and in fact, we had one of those. So I just wanted to point that out.
Okay. So, any questions for our water manager? Starting on my right, I think I'm starting to go on.
I'm reading it, taking it at your word, $366.32 credit qualifies and is recommended.
Correct.
No questions.
Mr. Haldeman, any questions? On my left?
He turned off the water spigot, the hogs turned it on. Is there a permanent fix to this? Did they take the handle off, or?
They broke a pipe by rooting. I don't think it was a fixture.
They broke the pipe by rooting?
Correct. If I remember correctly, yeah, they were rooting and they broke a pipe. They cracked a pipe.
Okay.
So it wasn't a handle necessarily.
Oh, so it was a it was a pressurized line?
Correct. It was probably the irrigation with the backflow preventer, something like that. And if you see in the pictures, that's what they're showing.
Yeah, I saw the pictures, but I really couldn't.
It looks like the spigot's right on the ground. From what I've seen, it's
Yes, it says it's within 4 inches of the ground.
right on the ground, so just mulch area there.
Was there a permanent fix to this? Did they go up gradient, up the line somewhere and put a ball valve in or shut off?
I don't recall.
Okay.
I thought I saw somewhere where they covered it with a center block or something. Yeah. I think that wooden box in the picture there is the backflow preventer for and the spigot is right next to it. Yep. In the original leak adjustment request, to page 1, it just says, covered with center block, right there. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
I don't know. This one's a little confusing to me. It looks like they said that the hogs turned on the spigot. So
That's
I
what it
read
looks
that
like.
wrong.
I think that's what I read it.
You know, and the first thing that came to mind is, okay, you have proof of this? You know, why would you say that the hogs turned on the spigot? That was my thinking. I just don't see any proof. You know what I mean? Like, what is the proof, sir? When you say you recommend it, what leads you to believe that this was the hogs? Yeah.
Well, I think
Was there evidence of feral hogs in the area?
We found, apologize. When we did this, and they had the feral hog report, and they reported about the feral hogs, they also had a police report and has been submitted. And I failed to put that into this water case, so I apologize. But that that police report would have more. Is that it? Okay, we did put it in there. I didn't see it in my packet.
Can you scroll to the next page, please, about the fourth bullet,
Right there? Wow.
fifth bullet?
How would we treat this if he, just say he left the faucet on and just walked away and forgot about it for a few days, or the hogs turned it on? Would there be a difference there if it's a homeowner mistake as opposed to the hogs? Would we treat it the same way?
The police report says no signs of intent observed. I don't know if that's what that means or not.
Police report just says it's hog tracks,
No,
right? Am I reading that wrong?
no,
I read it earlier.
I saw that.
It's like it's hog tracks. So, I don't know how to take that. You know what I mean?
So when we read this, we saw this as being plausible, and that's why we made the recommendation. It's not something, if we had a customer that just left the water on, that would be a different scenario. This is a unique situation. So we look for your guidance.
Well, in my opinion, you are the subject matter expert, your staff and you. I mean, you guys do this all the time. You know what you see. It's just things that, that's why we have a commission, things that come to our head, just kind of query, hey, how, why, what, and things of that nature. But I trust you, sir, that you believe that it's plausible.
And it looks like the ground, of course, slopes down to the street, and there's a cover right there, so we go right in the drainage.
Yeah, but I'm
We
still,
won't see it down the street, won't see it anywhere,
I'm still curious, or go back to the fix, so that the hogs don't turn the water on again. And what the homeowner's going to do he's got a spigot 4 inches off the ground, and what's he going to do to prevent this, us getting another request 6 months from now?
It does look like he has something in corrective measures. It looks like he covered with a cylinder block.
Says he will cover with says will, doesn't say he
okay.
did. So. I don't know if it's a square block or.
It's not really a permanent fix, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's not, you're correct, yes, not really a permanent fix, so.
Just for context, we have declined to recommend approval in situations like with lightning storms and things like that, with people's sprinkler systems. So, unless, because you mentioned that you thought maybe a pipe was cracked, but if this really is just the spigot was turned, then, nothing's broken, there's no leak, it's a design issue. I agree that it's a little bit iffy, but, you validated the amount of water that was lost, so I'm not sure. I guess I'm a little bit concerned about the statement that the city's responsible for the hogs. I kind of took that one a little bit the wrong way, but like Dr. Carmichael has a good point that the issue has not really been fixed. So even if we did go forward with a recommendation for, granting some relief on the rate, I think it should come with some guidance to provide a more permanent solution. A cinder block can be moved out of the way pretty easy. So a lock or redesign, raising the spigot, something like that would be more of a fix.
What if we held our recommendation until proof of fixing?
I like that. We'd go back to the customer and ask them for proof that this won't happen again or something like that. I don't know how to word it.
Yes, I agree.
Mr. Valdez, do you have the contact for that customer by any chance? Okay.
I mean, does the city have an opinion on that? Is this something that warrants further negotiation with the customer?
I think it's just like if there's a water leak, that the water leak has to be repaired before we do a leak adjustment, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I see it as kind of the same thing.
So we need a motion?
Unless the city administrator disagrees with me, then I retract that remark. So.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I would say that this is not that you're making the repair a requirement for you to consider this, but that in the context of any time you consider any of these requests, part of the story is, was something done to fix it? And I know that's a nuance, but it's important because otherwise you can sit here all day long and give people requirements before you you consider recommending a leak adjustment, and I don't think you want to get into that. But in this case, the way I would couch this is that this request is incomplete, because for all we know, they did do something, and they just didn't put it in there. So I wouldn't say you're not doing it because they didn't fix it. I would say you're tabling it to find out if they did fix it, if that makes sense.
This is a motion to delay or table this till next month, pending proof that something was done?
So I guess to the mayor's point, on the document that's before us, they did turn the faucet off. Okay, but I'm not sure the faucet being off, the faucet was off when the hogs supposedly furrowed, so we need something, to your point, to something concrete, right?
Well, I think what the mayor is saying is the submission, that the leak request adjustment is an incomplete document. It's not, it does not include a fix to the main issue. So we should table it until they complete their request per the ordinance.
So I think the motion is to request the water manager to follow up the homeowner on the item on the what corrective measures repairs have been made. Please provide documentation receipts. Block of the water leak adjustment form.
I think that's our hope that the water manager will do, but the motion that's needed is just to table the request.
Right.
Okay.
I just wanted to add something. I've kind of changed my opinion on it at listening to everybody's discussion, and I think the word, a poor design of having the water pipe right there could be easily turned on from any accident. Yeah, okay, let's get a lock on it or something like that, but how far does that apply to? I didn't insulate my pipes, they froze, they busted, they leaked, that was my fault, and can I get a credit for that? That just, my wheels were spinning a little bit thinking of
Other potential.
yeah.
Well, I mean, that's why the motion is, the leak request is, I'm not making a motion yet, but it's incomplete. So we have to, table the motion, and then the water manager and the city can work with the homeowner to find out a little bit more information.
I think we do need officially, we need a motion to table it.
Yeah, but to
And
point, we're not at this point getting in the business of trying to figure out which cases are sufficient to be repaired or not. We're just saying this one doesn't meet all of the criteria yet, and then that gives us some time to figure out what to do. So I guess without further delay, then I will make a motion that we table the leak adjustment request for 20429 Wall Lane pending a complete submission of the leak request.
Second.
I'm sorry, I looked at the wrong one, didn't I? So where's that address? There it is. So amend the motion to be 21926 Castano Cove.
Okay.
And I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So, okay. So we got through the 6 leak adjustments. Now we have a follow-up from a previous leak adjustment. This was 2525 Farm to Market 3009. This was a request that we addressed in January. And I'll turn over to the water manager to cover the request.
So we had a request for a water leak adjustment, which had to go from the water department to the water commission, and it was over $4,000 credit. So it had to go to the council. That being said, there was some issue with some late charges that came up and that were not addressed during that period of time. Dr. Ong has requested to have her case before you in order to give her, she would like a credit back for 2 late charges, one of the amount of $404.88 and one for $450.64. And the reason for that late charge is with that water that was used, her bill was high at over $4,000. And so at that 10% adjustment for failing to pay, the first late charge was $404.88. And then the next month, there was also another failure to pay, which was that $450.64. So there are some options here to talk about credit and what's fair. So I'll let you discuss it, and there are some options that I have if you'd like to know them.
Okay, there's also, so in your packet is also a memo letter from the petitioner, and also the data there that has all the sheets, and a follow-up memo from Assistant City Secretary about some history, because the utility clerk in process of this resigned, so we don't have, so we have some lack of communication there, so I'll let Kat refer to this memo if you have any questions for her, or just want to explain it. And then.
Yes, I don't have anything further to add to my memo, unless anybody has questions about it.
Okay. Now, at the February, so we discussed it during the January Water Commission meeting. We recommended to council, and I read that recommendation during the February council meeting. After the meeting, she also approached me to ask me about this request. And now her story to me then was that Denise, our former utility clerk, instructed her not to remove the auto draft, but that's what she told me. The recommendation was there, but this doesn't say that. So we don't have, it's all hearsay at this point, right?
I do have one thing to add, I apologize. She did physically come into the office to turn in her leak adjustment request, which was dated, I believe, October 6th, which was almost the following week after she realized that she had the leak, and we contacted her because of how big the leak was in and of itself. And I do distinctly remember Denise talking to her about payment because of how large the bill was. I believe it was almost $4,000, if not more. And we did know that she was on an auto draft account, and we explained to her how she could go forward moving with paying that.
So she requested that the auto draft be removed, and that's why the building got paid. Now, it was originally scheduled for the December meeting, and that meeting got canceled because of lack of quorum. I don't know why this didn't make it in the November meeting. But at that point, though, I think she started paying the bill at that point anyway, so. Comments, questions?
I have a comment. Is this within our jurisdiction?
I had that question too.
I don't, yeah, I don't see where, not that I'm not sympathetic or maybe even empathetic, but I don't see under the ordinance where, you know, we can make recommendations on leaks, but this is a billing issue, and I don't think it's our issue.
I was thinking the same thing. I just should have asked earlier about it. City Administrator?
You can definitely recommend this be moved forward to city council for consideration.
Okay, so, yes, apparently. Mr. Mayor?
Sir, it's a great question, but if you think about it, it's not a leak adjustment, and you are a commission, and you can recommend anything you want to council. And you will, from time to time, recommend all kinds of stuff to council, right? So this is just an issue. It's not a leak adjustment, it's an issue. That if you review it, you can lend some expertise and shed some light on it, and you can feel free to recommend to them what y'all think. So yeah, your question's a great question. Hey, we're only supposed to do these certain, but the fact that you can do leak adjustment requests in certain cases and not in others doesn't prevent you from making recommendations about water pipes or water meters or anything else that has to do with water. And this is not a leak adjustment, so.
So then my follow-up question is there a better ordinance? In other words, is there other guidance out there that is on point to this that we need to be aware of before we move forward?
Well, this is still within the water company, water department, so this is part of ours jurisdiction in a way. This is as a result of a water leak. So in a way, they're connected.
Do we have to make a recommendation one way or the other, or can we just say, punt it? I like that.
Well, put it this way, I'm not taking anything to council without a recommendation. I've done that once, and I'm not going to do it again.
Well, this situation, as I recall, was pretty unusual and pretty drastic in the first place, and so there was a lot of effort to provide relief, and it just seems like it's a continuation of the same thing. Part that concerns me is there's some dispute as to whether or not the customer was informed of the requirement to make arrangements, and it seems like some things were offered, so I don't think that the city's on the hook for the entire amount requested. One could make a case for, you know, it would be equitable to share that a little bit or to give some sort of relief. So I like the fact there's options, but $850, $735, $843, and $0 seems to be a little bit strange of a range of options. So maybe a little bit more information on that, but I could see some sort of, you know, recommendation to provide a little bit of relief, but I think the customer probably did not exercise all due diligence necessary to even make some sort of payment, right? There was no payment made during this whole process, is that correct?
There was some payment made. Now, what she told me that in February, if she had been aware that there would be penalty, you know, late charges added, she would have paid the bill entirely in the first due date. She could have paid it. It's not an issue whether she could have paid it or not. So it's just information that she was given or she thought she had. Like I said, that it was recommended to her not to. At least that's what her story is.
Can we go back to some past history? Because I recall a lot of history in newspaper articles and news articles back when the water rates were rolled out a couple of years ago, and a lot of people who balked at paying. And I'm not sure how that got handled, but I know friends of mine who got $5,000, $6,000 water bills that were forgiven when the rates got rolled back.
About ready to jump on that one.
If someone has a large bill and they make arrangements, then the penalty stops. They're not continually assessed a penalty. What was the other part that happened, Kat? I'm going to let you explain that one.
Okay. When that initial bill came out last August, I believe, we did send out mass notification to all residents that if they did receive a large bill and could not pay it, they had the option to revoke their auto drafts before they were pulled out of their accounts, and also to set up for 4-month utility arrangement plans if they needed. I can tell you that during that time frame, we did have many individuals revoke their auto drafts and set up for arrangement plans. So that was provided if they needed,
Also-
until the bill was recorrected.
Also, I'd like
That
to
was
add, go ahead.
When, yeah, we had the higher rate, and then we went back, we're gonna read back to the old rate, so they take off the auto draft so they could wait for the credit and pay the new bill. But that's all I recall, it was just for that time period to get either take the credit or pay the new bill, so.
But now, in this case, the adjustment was granted,
Yes,
so actually in retrospect, the penalty was moot. And, I mean, had the leak adjustment been granted earlier, there would have been no penalty. What did the water bill go back to when the adjustment was made? Do we have that? And then my follow-up question would be, what would be the penalty for failure to pay the adjusted bill?
so the credit was $34.52, is that?
Yes.
I believe it's option 2, yes. If you wanted to charge the late penalty at what she was actually billed, it would be option 2, which would be a credit of $735.71.
Well, just speaking for myself, if I understand option 2 correctly, that's the one I favor, because I think just about anybody knows you're gonna pay something when you submit. I mean, there's gonna be some charge. So to just say it's not my fault, I think is a little bit extreme. But, so if option 2 is granting a credit for the part that was already forgiven by council and is only preserving late fees for the part the customer actually had to pay, I think that's equitable and something that I could support.
Yep, I think I agree with that, yes.
What pages are the options on? I've lost
It's on the sheet that was on the table earlier. On one of the back sheets of that. It's on the back of that one.
Flipped it up.
Mr. Parsons, what is 570, 54, and 627, 59? What are those? In option 2, what are those?
Okay, so to go through option 2, the credit late charge at 10% of the new calculated amount, that means that whatever was calculated as her portion of the bill it would be $570.54 would be her portion of that she would have paid with a leak adjustment. At a 10% would be $57.05. Plus, if that same $570.54 were to continue, it would have turned into $627.59 times 10%, which would be another $62.76. That equals together both the $57.05 and the $62.79, the $119.81. And if you take the total bill that was late charge, and you subtract that $119.81, it comes to a credit of $735.71. I know this is convoluted. I did my best.
Yes, sir.
Kind of gone back and forth on this one a lot too in my mind, but I do think maybe she does deserve some of the benefit of the doubt, because there was a lot of confusion going on with the auto draft and everything, or there could have been stuff that could have been confused, I think. So, you know, where on the options there, I'm kind of leaning to definitely give her the benefit of the doubt on this one.
Mr. Mueller or Mr. Bullard, you want to add any comments, sir? Either one?
Well, sir, there definitely has been a lot of conversation, and I'm inclined. In today's world, we just don't, there's always a penalty, you know what I mean? A penalty for, so I definitely believe that the customer, some dues on the customer. So, I mean, of all the options that you have listed, I'm inclined to go with 2 as well. The simple fact that, you know, late charges is always going to be assessed in anything for the most part. So that's my thought, sir.
I like that idea also of option 2. I think it sets a bad precedent if people can just dispute their bill and not make any payments and know that their late payments are going to be forgiven at a later date. They have an option to set up a payment plan. Obviously, she was informed of that. So understanding and sort of having a little bit of idea of what the situation was, I think option 2 strikes a good balance between making sure we don't set a precedent and doing right by probably this customer that had a very large bill that wasn't necessarily her fault.
Somebody will put that into motion? Into a motion? Everybody seems to be agreeing, so.
I motion that we recommend billing option number 2 to City Council for this customer, for the late fee.
I would second that.
Is that not sufficient?
And technically, at this point, it would be a credit.
Credit, yes.
Okay, so.
Has the customer paid this amount?
Yes.
Okay.
They, with the leak adjustment that they already received, they have a credit.
They already have
I believe they still have a credit right now on their bill.
They still have a credit on their account, if you look on the screen.
So it would further that credit. Yeah.
She eventually
Up at the top, the very top line on the right-hand side, all the way over, you'll see that credit balance of almost $1,000 still on her account, active as of this month. So.
This would just further that credit.
So we need to just add to the credit, $735. So, confer with my colleagues, I recommend that the option 2, $735.71 be credited to this customer's account.
I second.
Okay. So just to be clear, Mr. Parsons, you said the 570 is the what their portion of the bill was. And then, and that late fee for that part, and then for second month is the next one.
Correct.
Be sure when I explain it to council, I got the numbers right.
Yes.
Okay. I'll double check this later. Okay. So any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. That's gonna be a challenge for me to present to council, but I'll do my best. You shall gave me a good direction. Thank you all for that. Okay, so now we're on, where are we? Oh, okay. The next item on the agenda, number 8, there's addendum in the packet to delete this from discussion, so, okay. It's still in the agenda, but you have to go to the addendum just so it was removed. That'll be discussed at a later date. Okay, so now we move on to Water Commission activities and projects. First one on the list is to discuss and make possible recommendations on AMI, AMR system. So we'll go to the PowerPoint. So, okay, I have, okay. So this is a water meter project. This was a new project that was added to the Water Commission projects since our last meeting. Mr. Mueller and I were the subcommittee from this commission. And we also incorporated consultants of our city engineers, Pat Lackey and Chris Clark. And of course, Mr. Parsons was part of this subcommittee. We've been working on this for probably the last 6 weeks, quite a bit of time. Here's an overview of what we're going to talk about today. Problem statement, what the project goal was. Going to give an overview of automated meter reading, AMR. What is it? What are the shortfalls and current state of our situation right now? And then we'll introduce AMI, Advanced Metering Infrastructure. What is it? What are the benefits? Advantages of a customer portal, and then overview of radio frequencies and cybersecurity, which is a big concern. Also talked about water meter sizes, have the effect of leak adjustments. We've had a good discussion today that really supports this. Do a financial review options, and then have an outline for a proposed scope of work, and then we'll conclude with a discussion and recommendations from the subcommittee. Problem statement is our current AMR system, water metering system, is obsolete. The collector is not supported, nor will it be repaired by a supplier if anything happens to it. The meter transceivers units on the meter, these are the radios that are actually on each meter. They're no longer manufactured and can only be read by our current system, by our current collector. Okay. What's the goal of this project? To investigate the feasibility of upgrading our current AMR system, or do we want to convert to an AMI system? We need to consider cybersecurity concerns, customer portal options, consider water meter size requirements, water meter installation options, and then financing options. How are we going to pay for this? Okay. What is an AMR? It's an integrated system of smart meters which have the ability to store usage data. This system enables a collection by just drive-by technology. What this means is we have the collector in the truck as the technician drives around and picks up data. Okay, this saves hours. It can be taken in hours versus days to go around and reading the meters individually. So it saves cost. Our system was installed around 2013, 2014. Okay. What are our shortfalls? Meters can be missed and need to be read manually. We have to have a plan for when to read the meters outside of our weekends and holidays. So per our ordinance, we read the meters around the 22nd, 23rd, I forgot what days in the order. And then that day falls on a holiday or a weekend, we have to adjust that. That's why some of our bills are less than 30 days, some have gone up to 33 days, depending on, especially around Christmas, because of that problem. So it takes manpower away from other jobs, because we still got to take manpower to go around taking the readings. All abnormal readings have to be read manually, or have to be looked at manually. Laptop readings, as you see by our leak adjustments, can only go back 30 days from the time they take the reading. We can't go back any further than that. And problems can only be detected by driving by and capturing data. We don't know if our meter's not reading, unless we drive by and get data. Our current state is we have iPro meters that are still in good shape. The meter itself is still in good shape. They're measured within the accuracy of the specifications. We've checked meters, we've taken meters out, had them checked, and they read correctly. The failures that we've had with our meters have been limited to either no flow measurement or breakage, a physical breakage of the meter. Okay, and those are still under warranty. And they're still replaced. We have spare meters and we replace them when that happens. The life expectancy of our current collector and radios is unknown. Right now we have 40 MXU units or radios on 40 meters that are inoperable, that require manual readings. So every time we take readings on a monthly basis, our technicians have to go back out and read these 40 meters manually. The iPro supplier, Aquametrics Sensors, has offered us actually two options. We can purchase a new AMR collector and replace all the MXUs, or we can convert to an AMI system using existing water meters. Okay. So based on that, we decided we need to investigate options. We just cannot go with one or the other. If we're going to look at AMI, convert this, we need to relook at other suppliers. So we decided to look at the AMI meters more independently. So what is an AMI system? It's an integrated system of smart meters that communication networks is actually between a two-way communication between an antenna and the meters themselves. We don't have to drive by it. We can have data at any time. It's reading constantly. Okay, and who's got control? Kat, can you show the video on there? Or I don't know if I had. Here's a video of City of Santa Fe, what they've done. Oh, yeah. Right there.
My name is Nick Schiavo. I'm the city's Public Works Director. I took this position in June of 2013, and within a few weeks, the meter reading staff came to me and said that we have a challenge with our current drive-by system.
For 3 or 4 years after it was installed, it worked great. And then about the 4th or 5th year of it, things started failing. They weren't communicating the read, or they were communicating the wrong read. We had a lot of zero user meters all of a sudden, which we track internally.
I think at that point, maybe only 60%, 65% of the drive-by system was still functioning, which meant they had to drive their route and then they had to actually go back and individually read the meters that weren't read through that through the drive-by system. And if 35–40% of your meters aren't reading, and you have to physically get out and manually read them, it adds a lot of time.
We were in the newspaper. We lost confidence with the public.
We absolutely needed a system that was going to be very robust and reliable.
So the City of Santa Fe issued an RFP, and through a competitive process, we selected Beacon meter reading technology.
We bought the whole package, a turnkey package. They brought their contractor, which was Professional Meters Incorporated, PMI, and we had it in 2 phases. We had the small meters, 5/8, 3/4, 1 inch, and then once that was completed, we were going to do the large meters, 1.5 inch, 2 inch, 3 and 4s.
What they have here at the City of Santa Fe is the E-Series ultrasonic meter, which is going to give them very high accuracy and very high resolution detail. And they have the Orion cellular endpoints that's giving them hourly data, and it's feeding into that Beacon AMA software.
As the Utility Billing Division Director, I oversee our customer service section, our collection section, our billing section, and our meter reading section. The biggest impact has been the Ion Water application. That has just been huge for our customer service and for our residents in the City of Santa Fe. Everybody just loves it. It provides us the capability to see consumption daily, hourly, monthly, and it's just wonderful.
Ion Water is the consumer engagement access. It's they can log into a website, or they could download an app and access on their iPhone or their Android. They can see what their water consumption is.
Our customer service department has really felt the impact of just how much easier it is to deal with customers and talk with them.
In a town like this, where water is scarce, it's absolutely critical that we have a system in place, a free system to the customer that they can log on or set alerts if there's a problem, and they can see what's going on.
When people call me and question their bills, I can now with confidence direct them to the Beacon site and know that I'm giving them the correct information, and they can look firsthand to see what their consumption is. So it's made a huge impact in a positive way for the City of Santa Fe.
And they're getting very high resolution data. That's going to help them spot leaks, really critical, in reducing non-revenue water.
We produce so much water every day, and the best snapshots we were able to get is from a monthly bill, and trying to true that up. And we know that we're producing more than what was flowing through people's meters. But for the first time ever, we have the ability to, on a 24-hour basis, track what was produced and what went through the meters.
Now, if it's unaccounted for water, we can truly subtract the billed amount of water from our total amount of water that came through the system and feel very comfortable with what the unaccounted for is. If you turn on Beacon, it tells you exactly how many meters in your system are leaking. And it's scary at first, 1,400, but when you start drilling down on them, some of them are very tiny leaks, and the big ones we're taking care of. And we're finding them when they're 24 hours old instead of a month old when we read it last time.
You lose 10, 20,000 gallons because something is leaking in your home, or there's a leak in your irrigation system outside. No one benefits. It's not a feel-good moment here at the city when we're billing you for that water. People pay a premium for water here, and this was going to be a tool for them so they could get out in front of a leak.
Through the Beacon server, we can almost make our own work for the day. We don't need the boss to do it. We can come in and see how many bad endpoints, how many reads haven't come in 72 hours, and we constantly are working those.
They have Beacon AMA, that stands for Advanced Metering Analytics. They would log in probably and look at the system at a glance. So from an operational standpoint, they can see all of the alerts and see how the system is operating overall.
It is more of a proactive approach now, right? So instead of manually reading once a month and guessing where the water went, we're now able to have the meter readers, again, just do more proactive work.
In Santa Fe, we've never had a tool that would show us black flow incidents. Now we do. We never had a way of telling the temperature inside of a water can. With the Badger meters, we now have that. I can run a report that tells me when a meter can gets to 34 degrees. Instead of waiting for them to pop and break and water running down the road, or the customer calling that they don't have water, we can be proactive once again and get there before it freezes. Clean, potable water is getting very scarce. And to take any water and make it clean and potable, it is very expensive. The chemicals we use, the pipes to deliver, the labor to put those pipes in the ground, all of it, none of it gets cheaper. This is gonna give not just the city tools to better use that water and watch over it and take care of it. But it's also giving the customers, those who are into it, they are into it.
With Beacon, it's changed the way the city of Santa Fe is doing business.
The Badger Beacon system is going to serve us very well for the next 20 years, I truly believe.
Knowing where Santa Fe was coming from, it was really great to have the opportunity to be able to partner with them and support their goals, knowing that this is going to be a long-term partnership and we'll be around, the technology will be around for a good long time.
We'll be covering here. It's a good example. It's a bigger city than we're looking at, but it still covers a lot of the same things that we were gonna cover here. It's just a different way of doing it. So some of the benefits that they were describing already is about reading instantly and on a regular schedule. Hourly readings logged, saved, reviewed as needed. You know, the water department can set up alarms for water leaks. You know, watering outside of allotted times, their sprinkler systems. Meter tampering, burst pipes, no flow, and other different alarms can be set up. We can also set up notification for customers. If we have to communicate with customers via email, texting, or whatever, for loss of service or boil water notices, we can do that with the system. Timely repairs can be minimized, for water loss, to lost revenue. If we have a meter that doesn't read, right now, we don't know till the day we check meter. Here we will know instantly. We can change that meter out. Utility clerk can view water usage on a customer call. So you can look at hourly rates, when a customer calls in, for example. Water leak adjustments will be minimized. Think about that after today. We'll let Jim talk about the customer portal and radio frequency. So.
Thank you. As you guys saw in the video, there's a lot of great benefits to having the customer portal. I think the main thing, if I were to sum it up just in one quick phrase, is the customer portal ends up putting all the power to monitoring their own water usage in the hands of the individual homeowners and business owners. Most of these web-based or app-based devices let you set a variety of thresholds for you to go ahead and monitor your own water use, billing, check your bills, and send you notifications based on what you want. We've talked about some of these things already about saving manpower and increasing customer satisfaction. I think a side benefit too might be increasing some water conservation as some people see just how much water they might be using in August. It might change some behaviors, perhaps. The other things that you see in here, that was the last one I want to mention about the leak adjustments. Obviously, getting the customer notified immediately when they start having a problem or something that's out of the normal can help expedite fixing of leaks and saving of water. One drawback, perhaps, it shows in AMI deployments to other cities, there's about a 15% of customers who adopted and actually actively use the portal. After hearing some of the numbers tonight, about 16% of the people e-billing and was it 40% using the auto draft? I feel a little bit confident that we'll get some good numbers out of that and get some good usage from these. The cost of the customer portal, I don't know if you're going to get into it later, sir, but some of these are included in the system, some are the additional cost, and we'll get to that as we evaluate proposals later on. You want to go to the next slide for me? Next thing I was going to also talk about is radio frequency security and cybersecurity. So for the radio frequencies, there's a variety of radios in the AMI system. Some of these have dedicated frequencies and some of these have shared frequencies. The dedicated frequencies are licensed, part of the billing that are part of the cost of the system. The other ones use the shared frequencies, which are typically in the same frequency band as at 900 megahertz, so the Wi-Fi and some of those other areas. All of these systems have, whether it's a dedicated frequency or a shared frequency, they all have redundancy in there to make sure that they have allowances for any type of interference and to make sure that the signal gets through and the signal is secure. Along with that, to the cybersecurity, these are sort of linked, right? All of these systems, well, there's one small exception that I found, but most of these systems have significant security protocols already established. I looked at, there's some DOE recommendations, Department of Energy recommendations that are kind of old from maybe 10 years ago. There's a more recent documentation from the Department of Homeland Security that we used to look at some of the original research that we did on this. You can see the list of things that are up there from the end-to-end encryption to the integrity checks, configuration management, role-based access. What all of these things are getting at is make sure the customer's data is secure, that our system data integrity is protected, and that any kind of insider threat is mitigated for people who have access to various levels of the system. So all of these, we looked at 5 different companies as a quick overview of what's available out there. We did notice one small problem. I think perhaps an older encryption method that's still being used, but for the most part, all of these things were very, very redundant and did a great job of protecting the data that was out there. Back to you, sir.
Mike, when we look at this, we decided we can just look at our water meter sizes. Our current water meters we have 132 3/4 inch. Our majority of our meters are 1 inch, 1,515. We did find, we do have some 1.5 and 2 inch. You see there from the numbers. Our standard size water meter is 1 inch right now. We get a new resident, we put in 1 inch meters. So based on this, can we put smaller meters in? Because the smaller meter, lower cost. Okay, so we requested an engineering study to determine the most efficient way, cost effective to look at, to go forward. So our engineers looked at this. They analyzed our water uses over the last 3 years. You can see here the annual average demand is 0.5 gallon per minute, or 750 gallons a day. Maximum daily demand is 1 gallon, 1.03 gallons per minute, which is over 1,400 gallons a day. And low daily demand, 0.05 is the lowest, okay? Now this shows an average of what an average customer water usage looks like. In your packet was a report from TRICO that has all the details. So that's in your packet, okay? Trihydro, I mean. Okay, and it was a link in here, in the document. We also looked at customer water usage analyzed. Looked at 304 laptop readings from August to September of 2019. Had 10 customers that used over 1,500 gallons an hour. That's 25 gallons per minute. During at least 1 hour and 30-day period. 2 customers use over 2,100 gallons an hour, which is 35 gallons a minute, for at least 1 hour in 30 days. So this shows kind of the higher water usage during peak demands. I don't know how well you can read this, but so we like Jim mentioned, he looked at 5 different vendors that we were looking at. The different meters with the different sizes, 5/8, 3/4, and 1 inch for each supplier. And then here's their high flow rate range and low flow range. So, we want to be sure that we have 2 things. We want to be sure that the customer gets as much water as they really want, but at the same time, we want to measure the low flow. We want to measure when they flush a toilet. Otherwise, we lose. The bigger the water meter, we may not get all those readings. So we're giving away water. So we have to find a balance between, both of those. So in their report, the engineers came up with 6 recommendations. First is to begin a policy requiring all new customers or all new connections and meters to be reviewed by city and sized accordingly to the specification and based on meter fixture count. And it says here, replace all 1-inch residential meter with 3/4, and the idea is here is that we do put new meters in, they recommend that we use 3/4 inch. We're not gonna go out there and just replace them 1-inch to 3/4 just for doing it, okay? What we wanna do is adopt the 3/4 inch, as a standard size for going forward, unless they can justify, in accordance with recommendation number 1. Residential service requesting meters larger than 3/4 inch must provide a fixture count and justification. Residential service greater than 3/4 without justification in accordance, then number 1, will pay an associated impact or service charge with the meter sizing. That's their recommendation. And then meters larger than 1 inch will be replaced in kind. So like I said, we do have some 1.5 and 2 inch. If we do new projects, we will leave those in kind. Put those as 1.5 or 2 inch. We're not gonna change those at this time. So this is the proposed, meter count. Go again, if we do put a new meters in, standard size is 3/4 inch, we would not put any 1 inch, and we put in the 26 1.5 and 9 2 inch. We would have some, and here's the recommended spares. We would have some spares in case somebody did come back and say, okay, I really need a 1 inch, okay? And we have some thoughts further about the different sizes to go forward, okay? Switching to water leak adjustments, okay? We've been averaging about 10 leak requests a month right now. Each leak, each one that is time spent collecting laptop readings, analyzing data. It's about 2.5 hours per request. That's the time for a technician to go out and take laptop readings, and then the time to analyze the data. Go through all those spreadsheets that we've been going through today, okay? So the cost of this is about $10,000, is this annualized, okay? So it's roughly about $800 a month, $830 a month. So far, before today, we've had 10 leak adjustments sent to the Water Commission. After today, this is really 16 now. Leak adjustment sent to City Council was 5. We added 1 today, and then 1 for the, which is not included in this. Total credit to clients has been $11,000, over $11,000. That's as of the beginning of the year, right?
Yes, sir.
It's on the beginning. We haven't included
2019.
anything else. So this really increases when we get this number updated. Okay. Again, we approved. Here's the date when we approved the water leak adjustment process was August 7th, City Council meeting. That's when it was approved. Question was brought up earlier. But after today's discussion, you can see we're having this AMI system and having data that can go back, hourly data can go back, for a long time, a year or more, will really help us. The other part is, even if they don't have the customer portal, the water department will have the data that says you have a water leak and communicate to the customer that within a day, okay? So this will be a big impact on this one. Okay, here, I actually talked about these without even looking at the slide. I forgot about the slide here. So, I think I just covered that. Okay, we can go back more than 30 days on laptop readings. We don't need laptop readings. We don't need to go back out. We just call up the data. And actually, we have some customers in the city that have installed smart water leak detectors. For example, Flow by Moen. There's other, Honeywell, I think, has some, and there's other vendors that have these systems. But if you remember, we talked about this sometime late last year. They could cost up to $500 for the meter, for the device, and it only measures where you put it. And it requires power, so it needs to be in the house. So it's gonna miss from the water meter to the house. It's gonna miss the irrigation system, things like that. So think about that. We do have that option. So financial review. If we just want to maintain our existing AMR system, okay, leave everything the same, it costs about $30,000 to replace the collector. Again, it's obsolete. we don't know when it will happen. You know, we could just wait for this to happen and then do it, spend the money then, or we can be, you know, upfront and replace the collector now. But then you have to replace all the radios on the meters, all the MXU units, which is about 150 apiece. So it's about $250,000 to do that. So we're talking about $280,000 just to maintain what we have. Okay. And then I have the annual fee for the system that we pay an annual usage fee. We also looked at options if we do put a new meters in, new system in, what it would take for city employees to put the meters in versus a lump sum, you know, paying this out to the contractor to put in themselves. So here was two options that Jacob put together to look at. And we could take anywhere from 4 months to 8 months to put them in, okay? Is there really a cost advantage for that? Well, just to look at that option. Anyway, I just want to show that we did consider that option. We did 5 budgetary estimates from 5 sources, I mean. The initial investment varied from, this included the meter installation, anywhere from $400,000 for just replacing the MXU units on the existing meters, up to $800,000. Labor to install the meters range anywhere from $75,000 to $150,000. The annual fees range from $10,000 to $34,000. Customer portals that Jim mentioned, we've had 1 or 2 cases where they were included in the initial investment, so no extra cost. Some added, it was an add-on up to $30,000 add-on. And again, some included, so the annual fees were also 0 because included in the annual fee above, some up to $15,000. So we're talking about, you know, we have an investment to make. Again, if we do nothing and just have to maintain our system, we're talking about almost $300,000 already, okay? But there you see the advantages for converting to AMI system. So financing options. Some suppliers offered financing availability through them. We also have, and if we did that case, we could add a line item to a water bill. Again, this is just for one consideration. We have other options that the council could look into, either bond, look at reserves, look at other things. So the annual fees would just be add-on to the base rate. About 50 cents a month is all the impact. So we want to investigate third-party financing if we want to do this option. Okay? So our conclusion from the committee was that our AMR collector and radios are obsolete. The failure collector would cost up to $280,000 to replace. Okay? And we're not prepared to have that kind of cost on our car sheets right now, on our budget. So we also included that converting to an AMI system is a viable option, and that we need to prepare a scope of work to go out for a public request for proposal, which is an RFP officially. I'm from the chemical industry, not from the government, so, okay. So this is what a scope of work elements would include that we would have to prepare. And so then the subcommittee recommendation is to request city staff and consultants, their engineering group, to prepare a scope of work for the proposal of obtaining, for the purpose of obtaining a request for proposal, RFP, for installation of AMI meters. And one other thing we want to consider is, or recommend, is that future water rate studies consider water rates by meter size. Other cities charge higher rates or higher base rates depending on the meter size, because again, the accuracy of the meter is reduced the larger meter you go. So we want to charge higher for those rates to begin with, okay? Okay, so at this point, that's our recommendation. We'll be looking for a motion on that, but I want to open it up for discussion, questions. I'd like to digest. I know it's late. But remember, we missed 4 meetings, so we're still averaging less than an hour a meeting. This is our, we missed 3 meetings.
That's pretty good.
I gotta try that.
See, you missed 1 city council meeting, right? So it's almost out. You rather do one every 4 months? Okay, so hang in there with me for a little bit longer, or we're almost done. What do y'all think? I mean,
How secure is this system to being hacked?
well, I go
They're
back-
very secure.
How does it use, if each meter has an antenna, where's the antenna located? On the roof of the house, or,
No, the antennas are located at the meter.
and they can be read at the office within the city of Garden Ridge with no,
So it depends on the system, but all of them have, they have the transmitters that are on each individual meter and the collectors. Some of the systems can operate off of a single antenna on top of the water tower because there's such high power transmitters at the water meter. Some of them have up to 5 collectors scattered throughout the city. And those will get worked out. There are RF propagation studies that all these companies do to ensure that that will have, I think their threshold is 98% reception. I can't remember the exact details, but I can look it up again. But they do a pretty good job of ensuring that you're going to be getting the signal.
Are there any shut-off options? So there's daily parameters that can be set. A lot of our customers, they travel, they go out of the country for weeks at a time. Something shall happen, they get an alert, it goes above the parameters. What's their options in that?
So there are some options. One is the old school, which there's no school like old school, but the ball valve, and you can just go to the front. Everyone is required to have a valve at the front of their meter, and they need to shut it off, and they will have no more water to their house. So that's the easy version everyone can do right now and should have the option of. The second one is there are meters out there that you can program to where you can have them shut off. It's the purveyor has the option of doing that. I do not know of anyone that allows the customer to have that as an option for their own meter. But that being said, those meters were not priced, nor were they considered. They are a little, they're pricey. They're significantly more expensive. Not only that, but that's newer technology to where I don't know if all the bugs and kinks have been worked out of those yet. I know there are some better than others, but that is not something we've researched.
So I guess the thing for me, like I was saying, our customer in Europe, going on a summer vacation, they're out. What are their options? They hit a leak, something happens, what is that option? They have to call, say, hey, can you come shut my water off? What is that?
So there are several options. So there's twofold, right? The customer, with the customer portal, they can set their alarm for their threshold of what they want to see. If they say, no one's supposed to be at the house and I want no more than 5 gallons going through my meter, if it meets that threshold or exceeds it, they will get an alarm. So if someone's either at the house or stealing water, if it's something like a burst pipe or something like that, not only will they get an alarm, but we as the purveyor will also get an alarm. And it's something that we can go in and potentially mitigate by calling the customer and finding out.
Okay, great. And the customer, a lot of times we say if it's on their side of the meter, if it is on their side of the meter, you'll go and you'll mitigate it. But what would you do? Even if say it's something right up near the house, like we've seen some cases tonight where they had a leak right up next to their foundation. The city wouldn't go out and dig and fix that. What would we do for that customer? What would just alert them? Hey, call somebody.
That's a great question. No, we would not dig up their leak and fix it for them, but we could and would turn off their water if it was a matter of wasting water. Okay. That's in our ordinance, and we have the authority to do that. So yeah, that's something we can do. We could also communicate with the customer, and if they are adamant about shutting off the water, we can absolutely do that as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Are these proprietary systems that we're talking about putting in? I noticed the video was kind of leaning towards Badger and everything Badger. probably has some type of proprietary communication protocol that they go into instead of some, standardized protocol like BATNet or something like that. So we don't get into the position like we're in now. It sounds like those MXU units are discontinued, the collectors, and did I hear that right, that those are no longer available? So my point, I guess I'm trying to say, we're not stuck with one manufacturer. We don't have to buy everything from Badger if we buy some kind of standardized protocol that's open to the open source like BACnet or something like that.
Correct. Yeah, so very good question. It's something that we had considered. No one right now has a universal radio and or receiver that you can. They were working on those things, but no one has that quite yet. There are some things out there that you can piggyback on, but that is, it's Universal City actually had a situation like this where they're using one brand and they're bringing another brand, but they're putting in a whole nother AMI system. So they're going to have two AMI systems, so they don't have to rely on one manufacturer or the other. That's going to be twice the cost, but it is an option if that is something that we want to do. One of the things that you were talking about, the safety and security of the system and stuff like that. There's nothing. There's not one company that can be read by the other because they all have their own. Is that? Am I answering your question about that? Yeah, so it's not like I can go with a different reader or pick up someone and go to someone else's city and pick up their meters and read them and collect data and stuff like that.
Okay. I didn't know. I just didn't know if they had some type of standardized protocol like that. That is secure, that everybody can talk to. It would just not get pigeonholed into one manufacturer, and when they discontinue a piece of equipment.
Well, we also consider that very, very thing because that's the situation we're in now, right? We have a discontinued technology, and now we're having to do something. And a lot of the manufacturers that we did talk to support their old systems as well as their new systems, and they will continue to support it until they no longer exist. So those are some of the guarantees that we've asked about.
Can't lock on any kind of price line that they don't start jacking up. Once they've got their system in, they've got complete control of what further maintenance goes on down the road and everything. That's why I really like open protocol, but I'm hearing you're saying you've looked into it.
Well, and there's also something to be said about these new meters that we're looking at have a 10-year warranty that if anything happens to them within 10 years, they replace them one for one without at 100%. After that 10 years, you still have another 10-year limited warranty, which means you have a prorated. So we're looking at a 20-year system with whatever we're looking at. And they're backing it up by guaranteeing them for at least 10 years. So if they're trying to jack up the price, it really doesn't matter because we're getting free meters. So, yeah.
So, thank you. That's a lot of work and a lot of effort. I very much appreciate that. Glad I didn't have to do that one, so. What I would ask Mr. Chairman, what are we looking for? I have some follow-up questions, but before I can get into it, I'm trying to figure out exactly what are we looking for?
For today, what we need to do, we need to get a scope of work so that we can issue a request for proposal. Since we have to go out for public bids. So we have to put out there in the system publicly. So we need to we want to do is request that, or have a motion that we recommend the city administrator for city staff and consultants to prepare the scope of work. And then next month, the timeline will be next month, we will review that scope of work. If we approve it and recommend that, then I'm looking for recommendation to go forward to council to go out for bids. And then after that, just starts the process. We're not recommending, we switch to the AMI system. We're still in the process of seeking quotes to see if it's viable and how we pay for it as well. But the first step is to get the scope of work developed.
Okay, so I'll start at the beginning, I guess. This system, and a little context, I was here, the very first thing that I did, the very first day that I was on the Water Commission, was when the manufacturer came and talked to us about the meters with the iPearls. And that very day, he told me that it was a Faraday meter, and in my head, I'm going, no, it's a Hall effect meter. But I mean, that's what you get when manufacturers come in with their bells and whistles. So with that context, my first question is, this is an infrastructure item. Why is it not being addressed as part of the water master plan? So did we look at how that fits in with that plan?
The water master plan right now is being developed. It's not something that has been taken into consideration for the long term, considering we have a need now. So the need now is that we need to figure out what we need to do in order to continue to maintain what we have. And doing that and analyzing all the options that we have, we felt strongly that looking at an AMI system was good in the foreseeable future and had benefits long-term as well as short-term.
You don't have to sell me on that. I was sold on that when we did the last meters. But at that time, we didn't do it because it was about $1.2 million. And now we're saying it could be up to $800,000, so it's a little bit less. But it's still a long-term purchase item that needs to be prioritized with all the other infrastructure items that we're looking at. So that's my first concern is I'm not sure I like doing this in isolation of the rest of it. The second part is, despite what they're saying about the meters and their life, the weak point is always going to be the transmitter. The situation we have is not that our meters are bad, it's that transmitters are going bad, and the likelihood that something like that will happen is still true. I mean, that sort of technology, 5 to 10 year lifetime, is about the best you're going to get out of it before the next big bell and whistle comes along. So we need to keep that in mind when we look at the opportunity costs. Tri-Hydro, I like what they do, but a max demand day of was under 1,500 gallons per day. That works out to a max demand of 45,000 gallons per month. We've had several at 100 to 200,000 gallons per month, so I'm not convinced that number is right. I'm convinced the number is right. I'm not convinced the way it was presented to us is complete, right? We don't have what's behind these things. Now, you gentlemen, of course, did in a whole lot more detail than I can get just a couple of days advance notice. So I guess my biggest concern I don't know that we're ready for request for proposal yet until it gets looked at. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I think we should do it. I just don't know that we need to rush into doing it. The opportunity cost is $300,000 to replace our current system if it fails today, right? That risk is still there, like we talked about with the rate study. But it doesn't change today in the next 6 months to get the water master plan done and look at that. So that's one comment. Second comment is the request for proposal and scope of work probably needs to be split into a couple different areas. So the company that's going to provide your meters and the transmitters and antennas and do the RF studies, probably not the same people that are going to look at the security aspect of it. If they do, they're only going to look at the links, because that's what they do, the encrypted data links that are part of that system. So that doesn't address how do we use the system, what vulnerabilities exist there. So you made a comment about having a meter that can be shut off through that portal. I'm in favor of not doing that, because anything that you can shut off through a portal, somebody else can. So the simpler the system, the better to me. So I mean, I like everything that's here. I just wonder if the next step isn't to put it in with the rest of the plan. So I'll pause and let somebody else.
There were some great questions you had, and I actually have some answers for those. So that max demand that was in the report by the Tri-Hydro, that was the average max demand. So that's kind of why you're not seeing that as being 100,000 gallons per month. So they were just taking the average. Meters going bad versus radios going bad. So some of these meters that we are looking at also have the MXUs or the radios that are inside them. So if the radio or the meter goes bad, they replace both of them. So it's not a matter of one or the other. The current situation we're in right now is the obsolescence of the radio itself, and that is one of the things that we would want to put in the scope and from the commission we would want to have considered is putting in there that all future technologies would support past technologies as well. So it's stuff like that that we've looked at. We've looked at a great deal. So any questions that you have for us, please ask them because we've done a lot of research already.
Oh, I'm sure you have. It's evident. And again, I definitely appreciate that. That was interesting. What was my other comment? And then, and then gets also to the financing options, which you guys, talked about. So I guess there's more than one piece here that I see, and I could be wrong. I mean, I saw this the other day when the agenda came out. It's the first time I've looked at it, so I apologize if I'm coming across negatively. I don't mean that. I think we need an AMI system, and the sooner the better. But I don't want to go through the same process that we did with the iPearls, and I don't want to go through the same process we did with the rate study, where we sit up here trying to make recommendations as the commission, and the information is not fully thought through in an iterative process with the staff. I mean, I think this needs a back and forth beyond just, the subcommittee and our little discussion here. So, maybe the next step is what are the big pieces? I mean, is it one big piece? If that's true, then great, we press ahead. But if there's a couple of pieces that need to be looked at separately, then maybe we do that. And maybe, I still need more discussion about the master plan because the last time we looked at it was before all this fun started in March. It wasn't too far along yet, at least according to the Tri-Hydro folks. So given the cost, the impact with the rate and everything else, I just right now feel like I need a little bit more information. And also some of the benefits that we're looking at, they're real benefits, but it's impossible to know how big they are. Like how much you benefit from the leak adjustment depends on the percentage of people that adopt the portal. I mean, there's a lot of variability in there. So the real pusher here is just that it adds capability that we've long wanted, and it is mitigates an impending failure. I mean, sooner or later we have to replace these current units no matter what. So planning to move forward, I'm 100% behind that. I'm just not sure what the next step is. If we all agree that the RFP is the next step, then we press ahead. That's fine. But I would recommend that it comes back to us and we look at that in a little bit more detail too. But my recommendation, just sitting here talking out loud, is to me the next step is let's look at where we're at with the master plan and how does it fit in there, and then do the RFP. But that's a comment, not a. I mean, I admit fully that I'm coming at this behind where you are. So please don't take it in any other way than just a comment. And I'm looking for your feedback.
And if I may, and that's what we're trying to do is if you have questions and we don't have answers, we want to go back and get those for you. Like you asked about the percentage of people that would benefit from this. Well, because of leak adjustments and stuff like that. Well, the fact of the matter is we've already looked at that, and everyone would benefit from this because if there was a leak, we would know immediately, and we would be able to notify them whether they had the customer portal or not. That's something that would benefit everyone, just having that data, because we would be notified quickly. So please let us know your questions so we can answer them. And if there's still questions, great, we will go back and do this, but we have done a lot of research, so please ask all the questions you have.
Yeah, the leak adjustments could probably reduce to 1 day instead of 30 days or more. We're just looking at reviewing 1 day's worth of leak if we let them know right away. That's what we're looking at that.
There's no question about that. There's no question.
Yeah. As far as the flow rates, the 3/4 inch meters, can put up to 35 gallons a minute. That's 1.5 million gallons a month if they're flowing it at the maximum rate. So,
Yeah, the 5/8 meter, I'm good with that. Although they do need to look at their numbers, because average maximum demand is not the system limiting factor, it's the peak demand.
well, it's based on the data they had, so, yeah.
I agree, but I mean, it's the same issue we had when we did the rate study. You get back what you asked for, but we don't always know what questions to ask.
So the engineers did talk about that, and they said that they actually have a formula on how to determine what the max, or to figure out the proper meter size, and it's, I forget what it was, a fixture analysis, or what it was called, but they have a way to do that, and they recommended doing that fixture analysis for some of those people that might be on the border, and they did talk about that, the peak demand versus average demand. That was brought up in the discussions. And they said the only real way to know is to do that fixture analysis. They said they wouldn't do it for 1,600 people, but there's probably some people that it should be done for.
Yeah, that being said, we also had the analyzation of last year's meters. We had some really high flow during that peak time of August, and looking at those and finding that, analyzing, there was only 2 customers. And I guess let me preference, when we went and looked at all the meters, we didn't just take all the ones that might have had leaks, but all high usage customers. We looked at those, and out of those, we only had 2 that potentially would meet or exceed the threshold of that 35 gallons per minute. That would be necessary in order to consider a different meter size, or a bigger meter size. So
In a way, we took this out of the master plan because we, with the potential of a failure, we needed to move a little faster, as we thought, to really get proactive, get this out. We're not making decisions here to replace them now. We want to get the scope of work written so we can go out for bids. Right now, I said we just got budgetary numbers. And, we're probably looking around 600,000, 650 is probably in the range that we'll probably be looking at if we went this way. I don't know the details when you actually go out for RFPs, what the actual numbers will come back. They could be higher.
could be lower.
Because when you start budgetary, they're just throwing numbers out there. They're really changing them. At that point, we're asking for firm bids. But anyway, we're trying to get ahead of the curve here and not wait for that. And as far as, anything in the master plan usually goes out for CIP funds that go out for bonds then, right? We may go out different ways doing this way to finance it without going out for bonds. So, otherwise we may put this down for a year or 2 years.
If we don't have the money in the budget to pay for a $280,000 failure, we don't have the money in the budget to pay for an $800,000 system.
That's right, yeah.
So I don't, this whole thing about it could fail imminently, in March, we asked that question. What is our imminent infrastructure risk? And the answer was none. When we did the rate study, we asked, what is the immediate risk? And the answer was low to none. So to sit here and say, all of a sudden we have this major risk, I mean, we can't deny it could happen. We've got MXUs that are failing right now, 40 of them are bad.
40.
But I'm saying as a commission, our role is to look at this with a careful eye to make vetted recommendations, because once it goes to the council, it's going to be a quick discussion, look through what's presented. And I see this at the school board all the time. The district is really good at presenting information exactly the way they want to get the decision they think is right. We have to be careful we don't do that here to go forward to the council. I mean, I think it really, maybe there's 2 recommendations, because I don't see any reason why you can't start working on a scope of work, but I do think it has to get prioritized in with the rest of the system so that we really know what our risk is. I mean, where are we? So anyway, I'm sounding negative, and I don't mean to. I think this is a great thing. I just don't know if it's a great thing to do next month.
I think you bring up a great point, sir. A couple of great points. I think at this point, though, I think if I'm hearing correctly, we're just asking for some man hours right now to work on the scope of work. All right, so that's the first step, scope of work, right? We're looking for a recommendation tonight from the commission to say, hey, look, let's go ahead, city officials, city staff, work on the scope of work. Then next we go, we come back, we talk about that, and then we're looking to go to the request for proposal. Is that correct? Okay.
We would ask for the scope of work to be written, so we couldn't go out, and then we'd go recommend to council to go out and send that scope of work out for RFPs.
That scope of work we will review, we
Yes,
talk about.
we would let
in
them
this
review
body.
too.
Okay.
Now, one other thing that we need to do tonight is if we have any input into what needs to be included in the scope of work, because right now this is just an outline. If you have specific things that you want to, us to ask for, we want that input too, that we can give the city administrator, so.
Okay. Also, my question, I guess, is, and I know it's down the line, and maybe I should just wait till we get down the line. I just want to, I'm thinking about rollout as far as, some of the numbers you guys put in your briefing, which is a great briefing about, hey, $5, I think it was $5 or $8 a month or something like that to the customer. We have to think, how we're going to
That's right.
sell that. You've got to get buy-in. It's just my thought, though, just the people aspect of it, so.
Right. Mr. Mayor, you have comments?
Commissioner Harshberger, good points. But there's one thing you said that I don't want to sit, and that is your words were $280,000 versus $800,000. That's not entirely true, because if we get a bill for $280,000, we have to come out of the budget with that. As you saw and as you heard, doing these meters, one of the options is to finance this thing. So we can't finance, well, I guess we could go get a loan shark and do $280,000 with a loan shark, but otherwise we can't finance the failures of the meters that we have, but we can finance this replacement. Chair Valdez talked about that a little bit. It's on here, and we can go through that more, but the paying for this is something that is obviously a big topic, but we spent a lot of time on it too. And we also have discussed how we're going to try to use that as a little bit of leverage with the potential vendors that want to deal with us. So I hear you, but they're not the same thing. It's kind of, fixing a building versus using Milcon on it, right? So, big difference, so.
Yeah, but you would finance it through, you have your O&M and your INS funds, right? So if we finance it, are you talking about, I'm not sure what you mean by finance.
Finance, okay, so, and it's in the slides. The folks that sell this also deal with financing. It's like buying a car and having GMAC, right? So it's not us getting bonds to do this, right? So it doesn't go into INS, it's a completely separate thing. It's just the cost of doing this, right? And now they also do some third-party financing, and we've had some discussions about this, but they kind of help you with that, and they broker that, and that becomes part of the cost of the project. But it's not the same thing as us putting in the budget for next year, $600,000 to $800,000, and trying to figure out where it's going to come from, whether it's going to come from a bond that now goes in INS, or if we're going to take it from our reserves, or any of those kind of things. And in fact, we don't want to do either one of those if we can help it. We do want to pay for it out of the operations of the water company.
Okay,
One thing
appreciate
about,
that.
if we go out for bond or like that as gets added to the debt service, so that's automatically included in the rate, in the water rates going forward forever. Sometimes we may not increase rates. If we do this third-party financing and we add a separate line item on the water bill, after it's paid off, that goes away. So we go back to the water rates. So again, these are just options that we're looking at for paying it. While we have to look at that as well as we're considering doing this, because otherwise we wouldn't be going forward. And we're not ready to commit one way or the other. We just got to look for options that we can present to City Council.
No, I agree that I'm uncomfortable with your request for proposal at this point, and I agree we need to look at how it fits in the master plan. And not that it's not a great idea, and not that it's needed, but there are other things in the water system that are also needed. And I'm not opposed to looking at putting together a scope of work, but I don't want to rush headlong into a request for proposal at this point. I still have too many concerns, and again, I'd like to see how it fits in the master plan. So that's where I'm standing.
What's the status on the master plan, or the,
I'm sorry?
what's the status on the water plan?
So the water master plan is going through the first phase of figuring out exactly what we have. And then the second phase is what we're entering into. And so we're kind of crossing into that, which means we're looking at the infrastructure and seeing what we have and where we're going. So that's the second phase we're going to. That being said, usually master plans and the stuff that we put in there are things that, you know, you're going to be paying for the next 30 years. And the question arises, why would you pay for something that's going to last 20 years for 30 years? And also, one thing to add, if you do have questions, you've mentioned that you have questions and concerns, please let us know so we can either address them or write them down and define those things out. There's a lot of questions, and I understand. And the scope of work, I like what Dr. Carmichael was saying, that, you know, scope of work is great and not ready for proposal. You're absolutely right. We want to have the best answers and the best bang for the buck for the city of Garden Ridge, and you want that too. We all want the same thing. So if you guys have those questions, concerns, and we can get that into the scope or look at those things, let us know what that is. Like, I don't want any pink meters, or, you know, whatever it is, let us know, and we can add that and adjust that. Whatever your concerns are, we will address that, especially in the scope.
Maybe, would it help move things forward if we, because I can see on the scope, like you said, scope of work is investment of man hours from cities. I don't think there's any problem moving ahead with that, but as I look at the list that you have on mine, it's page 26. I don't know what it is on yours. I mean, there's nothing there. The AMI meter size, 3/4 inch, meter by the supplier, the portal, radio frequency, those are not, I don't think there's any real question. Those have to be in there, right? And that's one good chunk. On the cyber side, I would say that there's the security of the link from the meter to the city, that's in there. We have some more things we need to do in thinking about how to roll this out, you know, and make it work. So that, I just don't want to imply that that is enough, that your scope of work is going to address all of those issues with the manufacturer, because their point of view is going to be a little bit different. They're not going to have the expertise to tell you how it fits in with the rest of the city's systems. Annual fee or arranging for financing, I'm not sure. I guess that's in the scope of work, because we want them to specify what their fees are going to be, what the economic side of it is. So, I mean, I don't think that's controversial, and there's nothing that comes to mind that above and beyond that, other than a system like this is oftentimes done with some form of prototyping or pilot project where you put in a few in and make sure it's going to work with the rest of your infrastructure the way you expect it to. So, you know, that could be looked at as, does the scope of work, should it include some form of demonstration or pilot or beta test, whatever you want to call it. But I think we could move forward with the scope of work if at the same time we are looking at, let's figure out how does this fit in with the master plan and try to get those things to come back together in the next month or two. Because I think when you go to the council, you'd want to say, here's this good thing that we want to do, and here's how it fits in with everything else, that we've at least done that diligence.
So when looking at the scope of work here, the proposed items are great. I'm your customer guy. So my thing is this: what about the education of the customer? Are they going to provide? Are we going to ask the person who installs this to provide our customers with some, hey, this is how you use your portal? You know what I'm saying? Or is that something that we don't think about? You know, or is that something that they have? Is it self-using, you know what I mean? Can you just go in there and they figure out what they do? Or is there, hey, look, this is what we can provide your customer, end user, how to use this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And in fact, we asked that question, and there are some of the companies that do customer educations. So that is something that if we wanted in the scope, we could absolutely add that in there. Or we could have you help us with that.
What's that say?
Or we can have you help us with it. You've been doing that quite extensively for the last
It's late.
some time.
Come on now.
No, but that's exactly what we want to do. If that's something that the commission wants to do and put in the scope of work as for education, we absolutely want to put that in. So thank you.
Yeah, just a thought. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I do think that's a great idea, but my understanding, the system is going to alert you immediately if it detects a leak, right? I mean, it's pretty smart. It'll know, and you'll know before the homeowner knows, more than likely, right? The way
Yes.
I understand it. And so even if they don't follow it and check it all the time or get their texts or emails or anything like that, I think Mr. Parsons will be the first to know. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, so the good thing about a customer portal is you can set your standards, and some of these manufacturers have it to where you set your threshold. And so you can get an alarm whenever you want for yours. We will set a standard threshold, so unless it goes over that. So you know what your water use is better than anyone else. And that's just the benefit of having that. And there was a question arose about a pilot. We actually had a company come out and put a tower up, and we went to the far reaches of our system, and we actually were able to find that those meters were reading all throughout the city. So that is something we did look at, so.
So my point was more so, and I want to make sure I was clear on this, whatever that looks like to you, as far as you guys, say we go forward, if you want that company to train you in how to train the customer or to train our customers, you know what I'm saying? Whatever that looks like, whether it's a tutorial, whatever they offer, but something, to where they can set the parameters. I can go buy a microwave or a stove, but I got to know how to work it, you know what I'm saying? Know when, if I could set the timer, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I get what you're saying, but to be able to set what I need to set. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we can absolutely put that in the scope. That is, some companies were offering to go and actually educate the customers, having a place where they can come together, well, outside of COVID, come together and educate customers or have videos and stuff like that. There are things like that. But they absolutely will train staff. Staff will be trained 100% with those that are going to be using the system, so.
Yes, sir.
And please understand, Mr. Parsons, as far as talking about pilot or beta or whatever, I am not very concerned about whether the antenna will work with these companies and the technical side of this is the easy part, right? Making sure that the system will work and communicate with the meters, that's the easy part. The part I'm talking about is how do we integrate it into what we already have? What incompatibilities are there? What's the interface with the billing and utility system? What about the, your SATA stuff that you already have? I assume there's no interface there, but we need to look at it as a system. It's part of the system of what we're doing.
Yeah, just to answer some of the questions is, some of these suppliers do tie in their SCADA system available. All the suppliers that we talked to, the 5, all tie into our billing system. So some propose they have their own, but they're all compatible with our Encode.
Yeah, but until you put it in there and do it, you don't know.
Yeah.
Right? It needs to be
So we need to spell those out
tested.
in here too, I guess, yeah. I know we talked about it with each one of those, we just didn't put it on the scope.
Yeah.
So, but compatible, yeah, so good points. So there's some more things that we need to add on to this scope of work. But based on that input, is there any other input? Otherwise, I'm gonna, since we're a committee of 2, I'm the chairman, but Mr. Mueller can actually make the motion. He says, this is a recommendation, so I'm gonna let him make the motion. If you want to proceed, so we'll hopefully get out by 10.
I think the motion is to request that can you go to the last slide? Yeah, there we go. Number 1, request the city staff and consultants to prepare a scope of work. I think that's as far as folks wanted to go on that.
Right, yeah.
And then bring it back to us for review.
And then bring that, incorporating all the comments that we heard tonight into that scope of work.
So I make a motion to request the city staff and consultants to prepare a scope of work for review of the for Water Commission review.
Second.
Second, okay. Any further discussion?
Yes, I don't know if you want to do it as a modification or as a separate motion, but I still want to see how this is going to get incorporated into the master plan.
We can have that as a separate recommendation, I think. Okay. So let's do this first motion to request city staff and consultants to prepare a scope of work per the feed input that's provided tonight. So I have a first.
You want to go beyond that scope of work for installation of cleaning the AMI water meter system?
Yeah.
Because right now, you're just asking to prepare a scope of work.
Yeah, it should be for the installation of AMI's water meter system. Thank you for that clarification. Would you like to change your motion?
Sure. Amend the motion to say, request the city staff and consultants prepare a scope of work for the installation of AMI water meter system.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. Great discussion. We'll go back to I'm gonna go back to the video and be sure I got all the comments y'all have afterwards. Okay.
So you're going to entertain the next motion?
The next motion, yes. So second motion is to
So
go, Mr.
I would like to make a motion then that the city staff, in conjunction with the scope of work, incorporates the AMI system into the water master plan and reports back to the commission.
I don't know. Okay.
Second.
Any further discussion? Any concerns from city staff on that motion first? No? Okay. So, you second it, Joe?
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? So, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I'm not gonna worry about the water rate part yet, it's not an issue yet, until we actually get it done, so. Okay, so 2 motions, and we're going forward. Thank y'all for that. Next item on the agenda is update on commissioner projects. I don't know if we need to go through everyone in detail, I thought maybe I'll just skip by and go by each commissioner and see what you have. So I'll start with over here on the right.
We kind of talked about it as we went through all this discussion. We met with the Tri-Hardwood folks and talked about the water master plan and our current infrastructure state, so we'll update that going forward. Mr. Parsons was not able to attend on that particular one, so I know we still need to get together with him, and that probably would have made tonight a little bit easier if we had done that ahead of time. So that's where we're at.
Okay. So that takes care of infrastructure, health, and maintenance. Governance and procedures, ordinances review, Mr. Bullard and Mueller.
I have nothing to report at this time, sir.
Okay. Education plan. Carmichael and Bullard. Have y'all, nothing?
I still have nothing to report at this time.
There's no update on commercial water rates and the water rate properties. So we're working on this, I'll start working on that. We'll start working on that later on this summer. Okay. Source and supply management. I know you've done some initial, but you haven't really done anything. Yeah, nothing that, okay. That's what I expected after this, so, okay. Strategic planning, we're gonna wait on that till the end anyway, so. Okay, any recommendations or discussions for future meetings on the Water Commission activities? We'll just get an updates next month, I guess.
I have one kind of a question in the back of my mind after meeting with Jacob, and that's sewer rates. Are we going to incorporate those when you go with the water rates?
let's leave that for future agenda items.
Yeah, because there are different ways different cities incorporate sewer
We're not,
rates into the water.
we're not there yet, so.
I know we're not
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah.
it's coming, I think.
Yeah.
We're
Okay.
going to put the line in next year.
Okay, so next month, we'll just ask for, again, for updates.
Oh, there it is. There was a discussion in the past on commercial rates. Did
Yeah,
need to go
so
back to
we haven't
that?
done anything on that yet. So
Okay.
that's one of the items. So,
I'm just wanted to, it
yeah.
popped in my mind, so
Yeah,
sorry.
there's one item on there for commercial water rates, yeah. That's Jim and myself also on that. Okay. So let's move on to item 10, ordinance 210. Do we have anything on ordinance 210? Questions, comments? It's a standing agenda item on here we have. So I'm assuming we have nothing there. Move on to future agenda items. So based on your comment, I do want to put on the future agenda, FM 2252 wastewater project. So we can bring that, update everybody on where that stands, so. I was told next month we'll be ready for that discussion. Any other future agenda items from anybody? I guess not. Everybody wore out? Okay, so that's the only one future agenda items we have on there. So announce the next date, meeting time, June 25th at 6 PM here at City Hall. Okay? We have no citizens in the audience, so we can skip the next one. And so I'm ready for motion to adjourn then.
Motion we adjourn.
Okay?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 9:51. Thank you all for your patience, and again, we missed 3 meetings, so tonight we averaged 1 hour a meeting, so.